Welcome to Sacrilegious Discourse.
I'm husband.
And I'm wife.
Together, we're reading the Bible for the very first time.
We grew up without religion and wanted to know what all the fuss was about.
Well, what have we learned so far?
That God is a dick, and apparently some people believe in talking donkeys?
We're not trying to pass ourselves off as experts.
Nope, we're just reading the Bible for the first time and giving our first take reaction.
If you'd like to join us in this venture, you might consider starting at episode 1.
Otherwise, jump in wherever you like.
All right, let's go read the Bible.
Yeah, let's get to it. Husband!
Wife!
Do you remember what happened on Friday and where the hell we are today?
Well, on Friday, we got done reading Jeremiah chapter 40.
Correct.
And in that episode, Jeremiah was... Well, no, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Jeremiah was given the choice to stay in Israel / Judah / Jerusalem.
Right.
Or go to Babylon.
Yeah.
Right?
Where he would be treated well and looked after.
Correct. Yeah. And he chose to stay in Jerusalem. Or
and
whatever. Jerusalem adjacent anyway. Or whatever.
Right. And this is after that area has been completely destroyed by Babylon.
Right. And then he was there was the new leader of Israel or whatever. His name was it? What was his name? Gedaliah. Yeah.
He's the governor.
Right. He's the new governor.
Appointed by Nebu...
Somebody.
The king of
Nebuchadnezzar.
Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar.
Right. Yeah.
What?
We're off to a strong start tonight.
Look, I'm sorry, but all day today I've been struggling to remember dude's name.
Right.
Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah.
So anyway, he was maybe doing some good stuff because people were coming back in from the country and what have you. And
Gedaliah was.
Yeah. But then he heard that somebody wants to kill him.
Some guy named Ishmael might be
Ishmael, yeah,
coming after him.
And he was like,
It'll
and
be
we're
fine.
like, yeah, you probably should pay attention to that dude.
Yeah.
And then that was kind of where it left off.
Yeah.
So,
and if you listen to our Q&A Saturday,
you might already know a thing.
Which is that them two guys were buddies that had served together for a while.
Right.
Which is why Gedaliah was like, get the fuck out of here. He's not trying to kill me.
Right,
He's so silly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was Jeremiah chapter 40.
It sure as fuck was.
Which means that today we're getting into
Jeremiah chapter 41.
All right, let's do this.
Okie dokie. All right, so we are getting into Jeremiah chapter 41.
Okay.
Which is a continuation of the previous chapter regarding Ishmael's conspiracy against Gedaliah.
Got it.
Okay?
Yeah.
So we're in the middle of this whole narrative thing. Speaking of which, this chapter in particular is part of a narrative section that runs from chapters 37 through 44.
Okay. Yep.
So, here we go. Now, it came to pass in the 7th month that Ishmael, call me Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, the son of Elishama, of the royal family, and of the officers of the king. So, see, he's part of that royal line, lineage, came with 10 men to Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, at Mizpah. Okay. So he's like...
This doesn't sound good for Gedaliah.
Mm-hmm. He's like, me and my buddies here. And he's like, yeah?
Yeah.
And there they ate bread together at Mizpah.
Okay. Well, that's not so bad so far.
Yeah. They sat down and had dinner.
Yeah.
Then Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, and the 10 men who were with him arose and struck Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, with the sword.
There it is.
And killed him whom the king of Babylon had made governor over the land. Boom, dead.
I guess at least they gave him a last meal, maybe? I don't know what to think of that.
That's just rude.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No, don't go over to somebody's house and eat dinner with them and then kill them.
Don't.
It's not a nice thing to do.
Ishmael also struck down all the Jews who were with him.
Oh, damn.
That is, with Gedaliah at Mizpah. And the Chaldeans who were found there, the men of war. He's like, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. Ishmael is like, everybody's dead.
I don't feel like this is a good move.
This is
you just
probably
got fucking conquered by the Chaldeans and Babylon and everything, and you're killing them already?
He's like, watch this.
What an idiot.
Right? And it happened on the second day after he had killed Gedaliah, when as yet no one knew it, that certain men came from Shechem, from Shiloh, and from Samaria, 80 men with their own beards shaved and their clothes torn, having cut themselves with offerings and incense in their hand to bring them to the house of the Lord. Okay, so let's go read some notes here real quick.
Okay.
Let's catch ourselves up.
Sure.
Okay, so Ishmael murdered Gedaliah along with all the Judean officials and Babylonian supervisors at Gedaliah's headquarters in Mizpah during a mealtime when the covenant community is celebrated and the people were less guarded.
Okay.
So they were like, wasn't that great? Oh, by the way, you're dead.
Right. And apparently nobody knew for days.
Right.
Which is interesting.
And so that makes the treachery of his act like all the worse because they broke bread together.
Right.
And he took the coward's way. Like he killed them while they were down, not in the heat of battle.
Sure.
Like he didn't even like fight with them or yell at them or say, pick up your weapon. He was just like, and by the way, I hate you, bye.
Right.
Yeah. So the day Gedaliah was murdered was remembered as a fast day by the post-captivity Jews because on that day, the hope of living a separate life in the promised land completely vanished.
Got it.
Like in that one dumb move, it was off.
Yeah.
They were completely done.
Right.
And the murder was likely avenged by a third deportation of Jews, based solely on this guy's actions.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Ishmael was of the royal family and one of the officers of the king, a descendant of David. And he was probably jealous that Gedaliah was appointed governor. So that's why he was like, I'll show you.
Sure.
Making him more willing to do the work of the king of Ammonites. So he's here at the behest of the Ammonites.
Ishmael is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Ishmael and his men had so effectively killed all the men at the Mizpah settlement that it took some time for the news of the murder to be known.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was not just like the next day, but it was like a few days.
Right.
Because they just killed them all. Like, 1, 2, 3, go. You're all dead.
Yeah.
There was nobody even left to, like, tell the tale.
So this was a planned assassination / whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
There were worshippers of Yahweh in the lands that were formerly part of the kingdom of Israel, conquered by the Assyrians more than 100 years before this. And perhaps they were influenced by King Josiah's reforms, or perhaps they came from the southern kingdom of Judah. Okay. And these pilgrims, the ones who were coming, remember?
Yeah.
Like I just said, that these guys came with their beards shaved and stuff.
Yeah.
They may have been descendants of Judeans who had moved north after Samaria fell in 722 BC. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Shaving their beards was a sign of deep mourning.
Okay.
So they were mourning the loss of Judea and coming to like bring their prizes and commiserate. But also, they had heard that they would be invited back.
Yeah.
So it was like, bittersweet. You know what I mean? They were coming to rejoin, but also to mourn.
Right.
Okay.
I got it.
So that's why they had shaved their beards.
Okay.
Okay. This large group of men came from the north to bring offerings and sacrifices to the temple. Since the Babylonians destroyed the temple, as we read back in 2 Kings, they came in mourning to bring grain offerings and incense to the ruins of the temple. Their offerings were bloodless sacrifices because no facilities were available for animal sacrifices.
Got it.
And since the water... Oh, I'm not there yet. Nothing. Okay. All right. So we continue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, went out from Mizpah to meet them. So he was not expecting these guys to come.
Right.
Okay. This was a surprise. And he was weeping as he went along.
Oh, he's putting on a show now.
He's putting on a show.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it happened as he met them that he said to them, "Come to Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam." So it was when they came into the midst of the city that Ishmael met the son of Nethaniah, that Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, killed them and cast them into the midst of a pit.
Holy shit.
And he and his men he and all the men who were with him.
He's killing Israelites all over the place here.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So he's just like,
what is his deal? Like, he doesn't even fucking care, apparently.
Well, okay. So the first group he killed was at the behest of this Ammonite king.
Sure.
And he was more than happy to do it because he's like, I should have been the governor. Fuck this guy.
Right.
You know, I don't give a shit. Fine, whatever.
Yeah.
And you Babylonians, you're gone too because fuck you for invading us. Right. So that was the first bout of murders. The second bout, he was caught unawares. He was not expecting this second group of people to come, and he had to kill them or else, you know, they were going to give away the game.
Got it.
You know?
Okay.
So he had to kill him, and he threw him into a cistern. Okay. Now, since the water supply was so precious in Palestine, the fouling of a cistern was a particularly irresponsible act of vandalism.
Got it.
So it's like, dude, why'd you have to do that too?
Yeah.
Cool. But 10 men were found among them who said to Ishmael, do not kill us, for we have treasures of wheat, barley, oil, and honey out in the field. So he desisted and did not kill them among their brethren. Now the pit into which Ishmael had cast all the dead bodies of the men whom he had slain because of Gedaliah was the same one Asa the king had made for fear of Baasha, king of Israel.
Okay.
Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, filled it with the slain. Then Ishmael carried away captive all the rest of the people who were in Mizpah, the king's daughters, and all the people who remained in Mizpah, whom Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, had committed to Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Like, I feel like I should stop saying so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, because that, like, confuses us. Like, it adds extra names that we really don't fucking need when they say them 30 times in a row.
It does make it a lot more confusing to me. I'm sure that this is how they were used to conversing back then, maybe, but
for us, it's like, no, I just need Gedaliah is fine.
Right. It's very extra, and we don't need that.
Yeah. So, okay, just to recap, Ishmael killed Gedaliah and the Babylonians at that table.
Right.
Then he killed these guys that were coming from afar bringing gifts.
Yeah.
And threw them in a cistern, except for 10. And so then Ishmael carried those 10 and all the other people that remained in town. He took them as prisoners and ran away with them.
Got it.
Okay. Some of them being the king's daughters.
Okay. All right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that's what's happening.
Got
okay?
it. Makes sense.
And Ishmael carried them away captive and departed to go over to the Ammonites.
Okay.
So he's
defecting back to the
Ammonites.
Yeah. Okay.
But when Johanan, the son of Kareah, and all the captains of the forces that were with him heard of all the evil that Ishmael had done, they took all the men and went to fight with Ishmael. And they found him by the great pool that is in Gibeon. So it was when all the people who were with Ishmael saw Johanan and all the captains of the forces who were with him that they were glad. They were like, oh, thank goodness somebody's here to save us from this creep-tastic murderer.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Then all the people whom Ishmael had carried away captive from Mizpah turned around and came back and went to Johanan, the son of Kareah. But Ishmael escaped from Johanan with 8 men and went to the Ammonites. Yeah, fuck him anyway, right?
Okay, right, yeah.
Yeah, okay, bye. Go to the Ammonites. We don't care. See ya. Then Johanan and all the captains of the forces that were with him took from Mizpah all the rest of the people whom he had recovered from Ishmael after he had murdered Gedaliah, the mighty men of war and the women and the children and the eunuchs whom he had brought back from Gibeon. And they departed and dwelt in the habitation of Chinham, which is near Bethlehem, as they went on their way to Egypt. Okay?
Got it.
So Johanan is like, obviously we can't go back to, you know,
where we were staying.
Where we were, because Ishmael nixed that deal for us. The Babylonians are going to have our hides. So we got to go to Egypt. That's our only hope.
Yeah.
So he's taken the people with him back to Egypt.
Okay.
Which to me is just a turn of irony.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Because of the Chaldeans. Okay. As they went on their way to Egypt because of the Chaldeans.
Mm-hmm.
For they were afraid of them because Ishmael had murdered Gedaliah, whom the king of Babylon had made governor in the land.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's the end of that chapter. Now, Ishmael's motive in transporting the remnant may have been threefold. Ishmael, the murderer.
Yeah.
Okay. One, he may have wanted to escape punishment, so he took all the people with him, right?
Sure.
Two, he may have wanted to find refuge with Baalis, who had instigated the assassination of Gedaliah.
Okay.
Baalis was the king of the Ammonites.
Got it.
Which,
Got it.
I mean, yeah, that's where he was going. So
Right.
obviously he wanted to find refuge with him.
Yeah.
And three, he probably wanted to sell the remnant as slaves to the Ammonites.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So this guy wasn't really an Israelite at all. I mean, he was by blood, but
he was by blood, but not in his heart.
He's like, fuck this shit. I'm just going to get what I can get. And,
yeah.
you know.
Worse than Jeremiah, honestly.
Right.
Jeremiah was a double spy or whatever.
Yeah.
Like a double agent. But he didn't, at least according to these stories, right? As recorded, he didn't like lift sword and hack people to pieces.
We didn't hear Jeremiah mentioned once in this chapter or the word of God or anything.
Right. That's
this was
because
just an accounting of like they killed him. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in Storyland. That's
Got
why.
it.
When you're in Storyland, sometimes the main character doesn't show up.
Got it.
Yeah. So.
I mean, we already kind of knew this was coming.
But not all of it.
No, not all of it. Not all of it. But I don't know. I feel like this just makes the story weirder. It doesn't make it like better. It just makes it weirder. Like he just murdered. It was some other king in some other land that wanted this Israelite guy to murder him. And he's like, you got good reason to do it. So do it. And then he killed him. And then that was that.
But that was the smaller picture. The bigger picture is, and that was the very end of any potential chance for Judea to reestablish itself
there at that point.
Yeah, like,
which makes sense though. Like we already know that you know there was a Babylonian exile, right?
Yeah.
So we knew that this whole thing was kind of weird to begin with. Like what? They
were reestablishing themselves,
right?
Huh?
Yeah. That was odd. So I mean, this actually makes more sense now.
Yeah.
I mean, to some degree.
I appreciate it because it lets us know that like everything didn't just happen overnight. Like it wasn't just like, and Babylon came in and took charge and killed all the kings and that was it. The end.
Right.
Like there was a lot of like, and this happened over here and those people were still fighting over there. And then you had some of the Jewish people were like fighting their own interests.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like they weren't all on the same team.
Right.
That to me bears repeating in my mind because to me, I hear these stories and I'm like, the Jews did this and the Jews thought that. And it's very easy to think of them as a monolith. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I gotta say though, so Jeremiah decided to stay with this remnant in Judah, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's a prophet who can see the future.
No, he's a prophet who God tells him things that God wants him to know.
Right. I'm having trouble understanding what his purpose was to stay here.
I have no idea.
Because there's literally nobody that's going to matter from this group doing anything.
Right.
They're either dead, heading to Egypt, or heading to the Ammonites.
Right.
And so what? Like, what was your purpose here? What did God want you to do here?
I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense.
I think we've got, how many chapters do we have in Jeremiah?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought maybe we were coming up on the end, but no, we've still got several more chapters.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Well, maybe it'll become clear. I kind of doubt it, honestly. Sometimes there's just these random things that happen in the Bible and it's like, yep, that happened.
Well, maybe he's going with Johanan and the surviving remnant to Egypt.
Maybe. But he literally didn't come up in this story at all. So I'm just, it was kind of odd. And I feel like we're going to just like kind of buzz over this.
Right.
And it'll just be a thing.
Well, then let's be on the lookout for that tomorrow. And if it doesn't come up, we'll be like, the fuck happened to Jeremiah?
Sure. All right. Well, that was Jeremiah chapter 41.
Sure as fuck was.
Which means that we'll be back tomorrow with
Jeremiah chapter 42.
Our favorite one.
42.
It's 42. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you then.
Bye. Husband,
Wife.
do you remember what happened yesterday and where the hell we are today?
Well, we just got done reading Jeremiah chapter 41.
Sure as fuck did.
And in that chapter, Jeremiah was conspicuously missing.
He was absent, yes.
He was, yeah. But Gedaliah did end up getting murdered. Assassinated by
Ishmael.
Yeah. And Ishmael then proceeded to run back to the Ammonites and...
Well, I mean, he went on a murder spree first.
Yes, sorry. And he tried to... no one actually knew for a few days, and then he went on a murder spree. Then he ran back to the Ammonites. Mm-hmm. And I think the guy that originally warned the Gedaliah, he was
Johanan.
He was trying to pursue them, but didn't catch them in time, and they ended up making it back. And then that was the end of, the wonderful Israelite encampment.
What could have been, should have been.
Yeah, right. So the remnants kind of took off towards Egypt. They're like, fuck this, we're out.
Yeah.
Because, shit's going to go bad.
Yep.
So that was pretty much what happened in Jeremiah chapter 41. Oh, one more thing. The whole aspect of Jeremiah not being, like, why did he stay? He's a prophet. Why did he stay with them if shit was just going to go south? Like, what purpose did that serve? Where is this where is this pushing the storyline forward? Other than, yep, they almost made it again, but then they didn't again.
Right.
Okay.
Well, this chapter has some interesting things in it. I think we'll see.
Okay. All right. So anyway, that was Jeremiah chapter 41.
Hold your questions till the end.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Which means that today we're getting into
Jeremiah chapter 42.
All right. Let's do this.
Okie dokie. All right, we are jumping into Jeremiah chapter 42.
Okay.
And as usual with Jeremiah, I have a bit of a note before we hop into the chapter.
Okay.
This chapter is part of a larger narrative that consists of chapters 37 through 44.
Got it.
Okay, so we're almost coming up to the end of this story.
Got it.
Okay.
Yep.
So here we go. Jeremiah chapter 42. Now, all the captains of the forces, Johanan, the son of Kareah, Jezaniah, the son of Hoshiah, and all the people from the least to the greatest came near and said to Jeremiah the prophet. Mm-hmm. So he was part of the remnant.
Okay. All right.
Just like, oh, by the by, Jeremiah was there too.
Right.
Like, even though we didn't mention him, he was there.
Right.
Okay, so they said to him, please let our petition be acceptable to you and pray for us to the Lord your God for all this remnant, since we are left but a few of many, as you can see.
If you believed in God, wouldn't you say our God?
Yes.
Not your God.
That is a note I was going to put out there, that note how they phrased it.
Yeah.
Yeah, pray to your God for us, won't you?
Well, I mean, if he's the only one, if he's claiming that he's the only one that can talk to this God, I would imagine that back then they're like, well, it's your God. You're the one that's you're the one telling us he exists in this fashion.
Right.
And you're the one saying that he is this way. And obviously you've been right about a lot of things lately. So it's your God. We're going to, it.
You would think that, but let's continue reading.
Okay. All right.
And I think that we'll find that, nope, it actually was just Jeremiah's God.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So anyway, they're like, would you mind praying to your God for us, that the Lord your God may show us the way in which we should walk and the thing we should do? Okay.
Okay.
So they're like, hey, what do you think your God thinks about this? Ask him what we should do now.
Right. This still also holds true with my theory about him being a double agent.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, if they're praying to his God, what they really mean in code is, what do the Babylonians want us to do now?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Then Jeremiah said to them, I have heard. Indeed, I will pray to the Lord your God according to your words. And it shall be that whatever the Lord answers you, I will declare it to you. I will keep nothing back from you. So he's like, it's your God too, asshole.
Right.
And they're like, is it though?
Right.
So they said to Jeremiah, let the Lord be a true and faithful witness between us if we do not do according to everything which the Lord your God sends us by you. They're like, no.
That's still your God.
Yeah.
Right.
But we promise to obey your God.
Right.
Lord, whether it is pleasing or displeasing, we will obey the voice of the Lord our God, I guess, to whom we send you, that it may be well with us when we obey the voice of the Lord our God. So they're like...
So they're taking some ownership here.
Sure
Okay.
they are. And it happened after 10 days that the word... So he took 10 days to pray. Okay?
Yeah.
That the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah.
Okay.
So he went away to pray, and then 10 days later came back because it took that long for God. Like, God wasn't just at Jeremiah's beck and call.
Sounds to me like God really threw Jeremiah for a loop here. He's like, I thought we were just going to stay in Israel and like everything was going to be cool, and then shit went south, and now I don't know what to do. So I need to think on this.
I need to think on this, is my opinion. And maybe it took him 10 days to get in touch with his people in Babylon. Like,
they're running. He's got to figure out a way to talk to them.
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do now, guys.
Right.
So anyway, so he's like, yeah, I'm done praying. So then he called Johanan, the son of Kareah, all the captains of the forces which were with him, and all the people from the least even to the greatest. And he said to them, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, to whom you sent me to present your petition before him. If you will still remain in this land, then I will build you and not pull you down, and I will plant you and not pluck you up. For I relent concerning the disaster that I have brought upon you.
Wait.
And in some translations, it says, I repent, in the Septuagint, as a matter of fact. And some of the other earliest translation, it says, for I repent concerning the disaster that I have brought upon you.
And okay, but they're going to stay in Israel still?
I don't know. Let's see what they decide to do.
I'm a little confused now because I thought that was, like we talked about it the last time, that was the true end of the occupation in Israel. So
let's hear what...
Okay, all right.
Jeremiah's not done talking.
Yeah.
The God is speaking.
All right.
Do not be afraid of the king of Babylon, of whom you are afraid. Do not be afraid of him, says the Lord. For I am with you to save you and deliver you from his hand, and I will show you mercy, that he may have mercy on you and cause you to return to your own land.
Okay.
But if you say, we will not dwell in this land, disobeying the voice of the Lord your God, saying, no, but we'll go to the land of Egypt, where we shall see no war, nor hear the sound of the trumpet, nor be hungry for bread, and there we will dwell. Then hear now the word of the Lord, O remnant of Judah. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. If you wholly set your faces to enter Egypt and go to dwell there, then it shall be that the sword which you feared shall overtake you there in the land of Egypt. The famine of which you were afraid shall follow close after you there in Egypt, and there you shall die. So shall it be with all the men who set their faces to go to Egypt to dwell there. They shall die by the sword, by famine, and by pestilence.
So I'm guessing that they're going to choose Egypt, even though Jeremiah is telling them don't.
Right.
Because even though they said they would do whatever.
I think that they probably assumed, like, a lot of the apologists that were talking about this, their notes all were like, they were asking and lying, and they were, hypocrites and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, you know what? I think that they saw two situations. Egypt looks great. Judah just got torn asunder. I think they were like, yeah, totally, we'll do whatever God tells us, because obviously he's going to tell us to go to Egypt. Duh.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's what
they were
happened.
looking for, like, prayer and things like that they would do to appease this God, to make him happy.
Right.
Not like going back into the fucking fray.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that they were hypocrites or liars. I don't think that they went into this they went into this with their heart already set. I don't think that is necessary. I think that they went in with the understanding that the course of action that makes the best sense is obviously what God is going to choose. They had no idea that Egypt was probably on its way to getting torn down as well.
I'm going to throw one more thing out here too, because Jeremiah had told them that if they gave themselves over to the Babylonians initially, right, that they would be good and everything would be fine, right? But then this Israelite from some other land decides he wants vengeance on Gedaliah, and so he fucks everything up, right? So it wasn't even like he was in cahoots. This other guy, Ishmael was in cahoots with the Ammonites. He wasn't even part of this group. He was just trying to take advantage of the situation and whatever, right?
Yeah.
But these Israelites that decided to stay, they were like,
okay, yeah, we're going to make a go of it.
Right.
Now.
Yeah. They were good with that. And so they were listening to Jeremiah, right? They turned themselves over to Babylon and they were like, okay, we're going to make a go of this. And it didn't work out. Right. Jeremiah's prophecy did not work out. Right. And then they're like running away from the situation because it's bad, right? Yeah. Things are going south.
We're like, dudes, we just got murdered. I'm not going back to Murderland.
Right. And we didn't even catch the guy that murdered us all. Like, he's still over there. Like, what makes you think if we go back, things are going to be better? Because you told us things were going to be better the first time. Yeah. So, like, no, we're going to Egypt, but, like, how can we make your God happy with that in mind?
Or, hey, we're going to Egypt, right, God? And then God's like, no. And they're like, wait, what?
And what's his hang up on Egypt anyway? It's not like they're any worse than Babylon, is it?
Because that's not their land. And because that's where God delivered them from. It's a slap in God's little pride dick.
I guess that could be the case. Yeah.
His little hurt feelings. Right. Because he's got a little pee-pee.
Right. I want to point out, though, that Jeremiah was basically not right.
Kind of, yeah.
In my opinion. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And there's lots of scholars that have better apologies than I do, so.
Yeah, whatever. I'm just saying they were looking on this remnant with frowny faces. I'm looking on them with, my guys, they've been through war. This is the people that were actually just they were the poorest of the poor. Yeah. They were running the land, right. And they're just trying to live. I don't think that they were evil or not evil. I think they were just trying to survive and making the best choices that were given to them at the time.
And now you're telling me that God's going to take the poorest of them, the worst of them, the most beat down of them, and fuck them over again.
Right, exactly.
So, nice guy.
So God says, and none of them shall remain or escape from the disaster that I will bring upon them. For thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, as my anger and my fury have been poured out on the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so will my fury be poured out on you when you enter Egypt, and you shall be an oath, an astonishment, a curse, and a reproach.
It sounds like to me, though, that what really needed to happen was Babylon needed some slaves to run the land of Israel, and Jeremiah was like, I told him I'd get him some slaves. Yeah. And so he's trying to scare him into that, but they're like, no, we're still going to Egypt.
Yeah. Like, we don't want to be slaves. If we're going to be slaves, we're going to go be slaves for Egypt.
We're going to choose. Yeah. We're going to make the choice to go over here.
Like, from what I heard, it wasn't really that bad over in Egypt. Right. And yeah, we were slaves, but, we had it not too bad. Yeah. It wasn't too shabby over there. Right. And, they aren't like war torn and you're not going to go without water and food.
Yeah. So Babylon's not going to go conquer them.
Right?
So.
Like, no thanks.
Right.
And you shall see this place no more, says God. Okay?
I mean, I think they probably already have an inkling of that, though.
Right? Like, yeah, no shit. You think? The Lord has said concerning you, O remnant of Judah, do not go to Egypt. Know certainly that I have admonished you this day. For you were hypocrites in your hearts when you sent me to the Lord your God, saying, pray for us to the Lord our God, and according to all that the Lord your God says, so declare to us, and we will do it. And I have this day declared it to you, but you have not obeyed the voice of the Lord your God, or anything which he has sent you by me.
I'm sorry, but you took 10 days to figure this shit out, Jeremiah.
Yeah, where were you that whole time?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't believe you.
Yeah.
I think you were...
I might think that you don't exactly know what you're talking about if it took you 10 days to get word back from God.
Well, it's not... Here's the thing. If you are a Bible-y God believer, then it wasn't that it took Jeremiah 10 days. It was that it took God 10 days because he had to prove that he's not at Jeremiah's beck and call. So he took his dear sweet time.
God's got like 5 people left at this point. So, I mean, what the fuck's he doing?
Well, I'm telling you what they would say. And, it depends. Like, are we in canon or aren't we? In canon, it took God 10 days, not Jeremiah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, outside of canon, me and you reading this as it is on the page, Jeremiah took 10 days.
Right. It sounds like he took a hike back to the fucking, front lines of the other people.
To meet his handler or something. Right. Yeah. So, Now, therefore, know certainly, this is Jeremiah speaking, that you shall die by the sword, by famine, and by pestilence in the place where you desire to go to dwell. The end.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm not excited about this. I mean, my feeling, and I might be wrong about this, but my feeling is that we only have, let's see, this is chapter 42, so we only have 2 more chapters left of this little bit, right? My feeling is that we're not going to see God take his actual vengeance on these people because there's not enough time, maybe. But I could be wrong about that too.
There's still more chapters of Jeremiah after this narrative ends.
True.
So, who knows?
I don't know. That is, it still, to me, sounds like Jeremiah is a fucking spy.
Yeah.
Like, it still sounds like he's trying to coerce these people into being slaves for Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing here that makes me feel like this is a prophecy of any type. It just feels like he is on Babylon's side and trying to coerce these people to, easily join Babylon to become slaves or whatever.
And that would answer our question last time, which was, why did Jeremiah turn down going back to Babylon where he would be treated well, rather than what he chose was to stay in this war-torn land? I think he was thinking he was going to be a big fish in a little pond.
Sure.
And that would serve him better than going, yes, he would be well treated, but he'd be a small fish in a big pond.
Right.
And I think that he stayed behind because he was like, I can get something out of this.
He felt he'd have influence and he'd have, things he could
leadership
do.
Position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I will be the prophet of Jerusalem, you know?
And honestly, I feel like he was kind of left out of the last chapter 41, because shit went wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is where his prophecy didn't hold true. They did the thing that they asked, that God asked, right? They gave themselves over to the Babylonians, and yet stuff still went south.
And so they were like, let's just not put him in this chapter so everybody kind of forgets that happened.
Yeah. So I am forever going to believe that Jeremiah is just a double agent spy type person for Babylon.
Total double agent.
That is where I'm at with this whole thing.
Yep. Not necessarily a bad guy, but sure, it's fucking a good guy.
And I've said this before, like, there's political and military things that happened all the time back in ancient times that were dangerous to people, and like they could just as easily have killed them all, right? But it's he if he's working to get his people to give themselves up, he may be doing so because he thinks that the best thing for them is to not get killed, right? And like he's like, if you don't do this, you're all gonna fucking die,
right? So
he could be doing this out of mercy for his own people, but at the same time, he's still doing it,
right? And
he's trying to pretend like he's not. He's trying to pretend like this is God, and I don't feel like that's the case. I feel like that's the way he's writing it so that it has some merit to it to the people that he's talking to, but I don't think that's what's actually going on.
What I find interesting too is that all of this is supposed to have been written by Baruch.
Yeah,
and we've not had word one mention of him.
Well,
in the last several chapters,
what we read, what you told us early on was that it was written by either Jeremiah or Baruch. So there was,
but then he told Baruch, write this shit down.
That was during a certain section, yeah, but it's possible that Baruch maybe went on to Babylon or something else. Like, I mean...
No, I'm pretty sure he's still there.
Okay, all right.
I'm pretty sure. Like, I haven't read ahead or anything, but from what I understand, they were, like, real tight the whole time.
Okay, all right.
So, I just find it interesting that he's supposed to be at least editing these words, if not writing them himself.
Sure.
And we're not hearing about him. So, I wonder if he is maybe... Jeremiah's footman, like, I'm going to hide out in this tent for 10 days. You go run the fuck over to
Babylon,
our handler, and find out what they want, because these folks are about to go to Egypt and I need to try to sway them not to.
Right.
If that's what Babylon wants, I don't know. Run.
Yeah. No, and that's the way I view most of these religious prophets back then, as they were political actors. And that's the way it comes across even. Like, if you read it from that point of view, you can definitely take that from this.
Sure.
And I enjoy that idea way more than the idea that there's a God speaking to these fuckers.
Yeah.
So because that makes sense, that actually makes sense.
Right.
You know, so that's why I enjoy it, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was Jeremiah chapter 42.
Sure as fuck was.
Which means that we'll be back tomorrow with
Jeremiah chapter 43.
All right, we'll see you then.
Bye. Husband,
Wife.
do you remember what happened yesterday and where the hell we are today?
Well, yesterday we read Jeremiah chapter 42, and
Sure as fuck did.
I was very disappointed in us.
Yeah.
We made a big mistake.
We left something out.
It was a huge fucking mistake.
We left something out.
It was the 42nd book of Jeremiah, and we
Chapter.
didn't make chapter of
Mm-hmm.
Jeremiah. And we didn't make one single solitary reference to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Because 42
What the fuck is our problem? What?
is a big number.
Yeah, it's the meaning of life, the universe, and everything.
Yeah.
How do you not mention that as you're reading through the Bible when it's the 42nd chapter of a book?
You know what it is?
What? Did we forget our towels?
We're not hoopy fruits.
Oh,
and
shit.
we do not sass where our towels are at.
Okay.
That's
all right.
what happened there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we won't let it happen again the next time we get to a chapter 42 of whatever book. So
Right.
It'll definitely, we'll cover it.
Faux show.
Got it for sure.
But
All right.
do you remember?
But yes, in chapter 42, it was a short chapter.
It was.
And as I recall, Jeremiah was, the people that were fleeing were asking Jeremiah what they could do. And
what should we do?
And they were like, does your God have some guidance for us? And he's like,
we promise to obey.
Give me a minute. And then he was like gone for 10 days.
Yeah.
And then he came back and he's like, yeah, just go back and, go work the land and go over there.
In Babylon.
In Babylon. And
Don't go to Egypt, bitches.
And then the remnants were like, why the fuck would we do that? That guy that like killed everybody over there, Ishmael.
Yeah.
He's still over there.
No, he's with the Ammonites.
Yeah, but he's still nearby. He's still nearby.
Yeah.
Like, and then you told us everything was going to be fine last time, but it wasn't. So like, why the fuck should we trust you this time? We're just going to go on down to Egypt.
It looks nice over there.
And then Jeremiah was like, well, y'all going to get, fucked over there. So
and
have fun with that. That was pretty much it.
Yep.
So that was Jeremiah chapter 42.
Sure as fuck was.
Which means that today we're getting into
Jeremiah chapter 43.
All right, let's do this.
Okie dokie. All right, we are hopping into Jeremiah chapter 43.
Okay.
And as usual with Jeremiah, I have a note.
You have a note.
A note.
Just one?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not the misnumbered Septuagint note.
Oh, okay.
It's the narrative note.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
This chapter is part of a narrative section consisting of chapters 37 to 44. So we're almost at the end of this little storyline.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah. What happened to the Septuagint misnumbered things?
I think
Why
we're back.
Why are they no longer misnumbered?
We're back on regular equal number. I don't know. Sometimes they're out of order and sometimes they're not.
Interesting.
It was just a few that were out of order.
Yeah, but you would think they would continue to be out of order, that's all. So
not necessarily.
I'm just throwing it out there,
Right, but I told you at the time that they were just taking certain parts out of order.
Got it.
Not the whole book.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
All right. So here we go.
Mm-hmm.
We are in Jeremiah chapter 43. Now it happened. Ready what happened?
Yeah, I'm ready.
When Jeremiah had stopped speaking to all the people, all the words of the Lord their God, for which the Lord their God had sent to them, all these words.
He sent this to them, their God, through Jeremiah, through his God.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Right.
It didn't exactly make a direct appeal to them.
I guess. So it happened after Jeremiah gave all those words that Azariah, the son of Hoshea, Johanan, the son of Kariah, and all the proud men spoke, saying to Jeremiah, "You speak falsely. The Lord our God has not sent you to say, 'Do not go to Egypt to dwell there.' But Baruch, the son of Neriah, has set you against us to deliver us into the hands of the Chaldeans, that they may put us to death or carry us away captive to Babylon."
Whoa.
Okay.
So wait.
Let me just stop. Hold on.
Yeah.
Remember yesterday I was like, we haven't heard about Baruch.
Right.
And then I was like, So it's almost like Jeremiah went into his little tent and told Baruch, go ask our handler in Babylon what the fuck I should do.
They probably saw him fucking coming back, and they're like, dude, he was just coming back from the over there by the Babylonians.
Yeah.
What the fuck? This guy's obviously in cahoots with them.
Right?
So, yeah, and you're telling us this came from God, but no, you waited for your buddy to come back from the Babylonians.
So I just want to tell you, as God is my witness, I had not read ahead. I did not know that this was coming.
Yeah.
That makes it all the funnier.
Right.
That I called him out. And then they're like, yeah, no, totally.
The funny thing to me is that they this is written by Jeremiah or Baruch or whatever, one of the two, both of them, whatever. And they just keep digging themselves in a bigger and bigger hole with regard to this whole like spy business, this whole like, they're Babylonian agents type thing.
Mm-hmm. And we're like, it looks like they might be double agents. And then like, yeah, they're totally double agents.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely.
So Johanan, the son of Kareah, and all the captains of the forces and all the people would not obey the voice of the Lord to remain in the land of Judah.
Why do they call it the voice of the Lord, though? It's the voice of fucking Jeremiah is what they're hearing.
Well, Jeremiah
he's claiming that it's the voice of the Lord.
But that's what the whole Bible is, claim.
No, I know. And that's why this whole thing is bullshit.
I know.
There's no point where whatever. Like how
you're so annoyed you can't even finish your thought.
Look, these fuckers wrote this bit about Jeremiah, and they sound, as they wrote it, they sound like they work for Babylon.
Mm-hmm. They should have literally just left it out.
They're also claiming to speak for God. Jeremiah is claiming to speak for God. He's a prophet of the Lord. He speaks for God. And these things have permeated into, current cultures.
Right.
Like we still talk about this. And yet I'm listening to this whole thing and I'm like, no.
He's like, they accused us of being double agents. Can you even believe that? And we're like, yes, bitch, I can.
Right.
I can totally believe it.
Yeah, and you just keep like digging yourselves deeper and deeper into this whole idea that you probably were.
I'm like, guys, stop talking.
Right, you're making this worse.
Literally leave this part out.
Yeah.
Like this whole book should never have been included.
It doesn't really matter though, because ultimately, I think a lot of this was written with the idea that nobody, no common person was going to end up reading this stuff, right? This wasn't meant to be read by your common person, right? It was meant to be read by scholars and by people who are trusting that this is the Lord's words.
And historians.
Sure.
They were interested in capturing history.
But I hear it all the time. There's this person I've been talking to via email recently that this is something they love to tell us, is that the scales are pulled over our eyes if you don't come at it. If you're not reading it correctly or something like that. It's apparently in the Bible somewhere. Like if you don't come to this correctly, you can't ever understand it.
And that's cool. I totally believe you. So how do you take the scales off my eyes? Because that's not a thing that I possess. And we've discussed this before. Right. That, okay, I believe you. There's scales on my eyes.
Look,
whatever.
The way that they're talking about reading it is like you already have to accept that this is God's word.
You have to first believe in God before you ever enter into this.
Yeah.
Then you have to believe that this is all God's word. Then you have to believe that this shit actually happened. I'm still on first step 1.
I would think, honestly, if you're reading the Bible and this is God's word, this is God's book, this is the thing that he wrote for human, had people write for him, he wrote, whatever, I don't fucking care.
And all this shit happened.
It's his connection to humanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would think that it would be a good selling point to bring you to God.
That's what I was always told.
Whether or not you believe or not, right? It would convince you.
Right.
This has done anything but convince me.
No, this has made me harder. This has hardened my heart like the goddamn Pharaoh. But anyway.
Yeah, sorry.
But Johanan, the son of Kareah, and all the captains of the forces took all the remnant of Judah who had returned to dwell in the land of Judah from all nations where they had been driven, men, women, children, the king's daughters, and every person whom Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, had left with Gedaliah. the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, and Jeremiah the prophet, and Baruch, the son of Neriah. So, all those folk.
People that stayed, yeah.
All those remnant folk.
They sure have a long-winded way of saying stuff like that.
Right? Like, all you had to say was, the remnant.
Yeah.
I know who you mean.
Right.
Thanks. So they went to the land of Egypt, for they did not obey the voice of the Lord, and they went as far as Tepanes. Let's talk about Tepanes for a minute.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
So Tepanes was an important fortress city on the northern border of ancient Egypt in the northeastern Nile Delta, and is generally equated with the Greek city of Daphne.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
So that's what it is. So they're in Egypt now, okay?
Got it.
And that's where they checked in to like, hey, can we enter your fucking little country over here?
Right,
and
right.
Can we live here? Can we be refugees here? Because Babylon is killing everybody.
Right.
And we want to not be dead.
Yeah.
Then the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah in Tepanes, saying, take large stones in your hand and hide them in the sight of the men of Judah. I don't really understand what hide in the sight means.
So that they can see you doing it?
So you're not hiding them?
I don't know.
Right? In the clay, in the brick courtyard, which is at the entrance to Pharaoh's house in Tepanes, and say to them, thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, behold, I will send and bring Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and will set his throne above these stones that I have hidden.
Oh.
And he
wasn't trying to actually hide them. He was trying to be seen so that you make a point.
Yeah. He's like, look at these stones.
Right.
I'm hiding them here for a reason.
Yeah.
And y'all get to know the reason. Babylon's coming, and this is where Nebuchadnezzar is going to sit his throne.
Okay.
And he will spread his royal pavilion over them. When he comes, he will strike the land of Egypt and deliver to death those appointed for death, and to captivity those appointed for captivity, and to the sword those appointed for the sword, and to ramen noodles those appointed for ramen noodles, and to the couch those appointed to the couch.
Right.
Okay? I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
Okay? I will kindle a fire in the houses of the gods of Egypt, and he shall burn them and carry them away captive. And he shall array himself with the land of Egypt as a shepherd puts on his garment, and he shall go out from there in peace.
I take a little bit of issue with this, because why is Nebuchadnezzar going to worry himself? Like, unless he was already going to attack Egypt, why is he going to worry himself about this remnant that's running away from Jerusalem? Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, I don't know. Is he just mad because
they got away?
Like,
I don't know.
Or was he going to go ahead and attack Egypt anyway?
Who knows?
They were already kind of on a warpath. They'd already fought once, because that's what let them break the siege of Jerusalem there briefly. So
I want to find out, did this ever happen? That's
a good point.
Did Babylon ever go into Egypt? I don't know enough history to know. I want to look that up maybe for our Q&A, do a little bit of Babylonian and Egyptian history hunt.
There should be some history about it, because, the Babylonians and the Egyptians both kept pretty detailed records about things.
Right.
So
particularly the Egyptians.
Right. And you would think that those things would be available to find out for sure. So that would be something interesting to talk about in our Q&A probably.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I also want to add a note where it says that he shall array himself with the land of Egypt as a shepherd puts on his garment.
Mm-hmm.
In other translations, like what this is supposed to mean is he's going to wear Egypt like as easily as nothing, not even thinking about it.
Got it.
He's going to put them on like a vest and it won't be a thing.
Okay.
That's how
easy will be.
It'll be. But in other translations, it talks about plucking fleas off of himself or varmints or little bugs off of him, like nothing. Like,
so they're trying to say this guy's really powerful.
Right. But also, they took out and changed the picking of nits off of himself because that was too close to basically referring to people in the Middle East as dirty and having fleas.
Got it.
So according to the notes that I read, that's why that was changed. I don't know how true that is.
Right.
It does track that they're racist fucks.
Right.
But I don't know that they would necessarily say, let's not be a racist fuck on this one page. So I don't know why some translations and not others.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know.
So I just wanted to throw that out there, food for thought.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. He shall also break the sacred pillars of Beth Shemesh that are in the land of Egypt, and the houses of the gods of the Egyptians he shall burn with fire.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beth Shemesh, the literal translation of that city is House of the Sun.
I think we've talked about Beth Shemesh before.
We have. It was located about 6 miles northeast of Cairo, was the ancient worship center of sun god Re, later called Heliopolis.
Okay.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
And the oracle here, he's describing Egypt as not a safe refuge from Nebuchadnezzar, obviously.
Right.
So he's like, this is not good. He's going to burn Egypt.
Yeah.
I don't think that happened, but
I find it interesting though that Jeremiah is still going with them. Like
he was kidnapped. He was forced to go with them.
Okay.
I did read I haven't read the chapters ahead. I never read the chapters ahead, but some of the notes, they allude to things.
Yeah.
And he was definitely forced to go with these people. And because of his prophecy that everybody, the remnant who goes there, they're going to get punished.
Yeah.
He was definitely concerned that he was going to get punished along with everybody.
Yeah.
Since he got kidnapped.
That's why I was, kind of wondering why he went along.
Yeah. He didn't have a choice. He was forced.
Probably because they're pissed. Well, I mean,
I think that they know that Jeremiah and Baruch are double agents, and they're like, nah, you bitches are coming with us.
Right.
We're not going to
let you run back to Babylon.
We're not going to kill you because we're not murderous fucks like you, but we're also not going to let you go and run and tell fucking Ishmael or Nebuchadnezzar where we are.
Right.
Like, no, fuck you, you're coming.
Yeah.
And maybe even, this just occurred to me, maybe even they thought that if they took the quote-unquote prophet of God with them, that maybe that would protect them from punishment, because surely God would not punish his own prophet.
Could be.
Maybe a bit of both.
Right. Just hedge your bets, right?
Right. Like, I'm not saying I believe this, but just in case.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, so they're heading to Egypt, and Jeremiah's along for the ride, and now
they're in Egypt now.
They're in Egypt now. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently now Babylon's going to fight Egypt, maybe.
We'll see.
Which is interesting. So
yeah, I am going to look into that.
No, I'm very curious.
I don't know
historically.
Historically, I'm not sure that actually happened.
Right. I mean, it might have though.
Sure.
There are some things that do line up with the Bible. So.
Sure.
All right. Well, that being said, that was Jeremiah chapter 43.
Sure as fuck was.
Which means that we'll be back tomorrow with
Jeremiah chapter 44, the end of this little narrative selection.
All right. We'll see you guys then.
Bye. Husband!
Wife!
Do you remember what happened yesterday and where the hell we are today?
Well, we just got done reading Jeremiah chapter 43.
Sure as fuck did.
And in that chapter, the remnants, the people who were left in Judah, were running away to Egypt, and they stopped to ask Jeremiah, like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm. What should we do? What should we do?
Yeah.
Can you ask your God?
Then they decided after, weighing it all over and deciding that he might be a traitor to just go ahead and go on into Egypt.
Even though Jeremiah was like, you guys should totally not go into Egypt.
Right. So then they were like, yeah, fuck you. And also we don't want you running back to them. So we're going to take you with us regardless of whether you want to go or not.
Because you and Baruch are total sus.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys are definitely spies, fuckers.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree.
Right.
I mean, I'm totally with them on this.
Yeah, we saw this coming a mile away.
Right.
And then the people caught up to us and were like, hey, are you spies?
Right. And then they got to Egypt, and then Jeremiah started hiding stones. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, my buddy Nebuchadnezzar is going to come and get you. Ha ha.
Basically. Yeah, that basically happened.
And that was pretty much what happened in Jeremiah chapter 43.
Yes, that is.
So that being said, what are we getting into today?
Jeremiah chapter 44.
All right, let's do this.
Okie dokie. All right, we are hopping into Jeremiah chapter 44.
Okay.
Okay. Got a couple of notes before we dive in.
Okay.
And one of them's really interesting.
Okay.
Okay. Here's the boring one. This chapter is part of a narrative consisting of chapters 37 to 44.
Which this is the last one.
Yes.
Of
yes.
that narrative.
Of that
Not
narrative.
of Jeremiah.
Correct.
Jeremiah continues.
But interestingly enough, this is chronologically the last episode of Jeremiah's ministry.
Oh.
He delivers his last little speech to the people in this chapter.
Interesting.
Which we still have like 10 chapters left, so I don't understand.
Right. Yeah, I'm a little confused about that.
Right. So, stay tuned. I guess we will see what happens. Question mark?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So here we go, diving into chapter 44. The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the Jews who dwell in the land of Egypt, who dwell at Migdol, at Tahpanhes, at Noph, and in the country of Pathros. These are all various places in Egypt that I'll get to in a minute.
Okay.
Saying, so this is God talking, according to Jeremiah.
Right.
Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. You have seen all the calamity that I have brought on Jerusalem and on all the cities of Judah. And behold, this day they are a desolation, and no one dwells in them, because of their wickedness, which they have committed to provoke me to anger. Yeah, that's why they did it.
Yeah.
It wasn't because they were just trying to live their own lives and do their own thing. They were on purpose trying to antagonize you because it's always about you, God.
If they really were fearful of this God and believed that Jeremiah was telling the word of God, they would have run right back to fucking Jerusalem.
Jerusalem.
Because that's what Jeremiah told them to do. But obviously they don't fear this God, or they wholly don't believe Jeremiah.
Right.
Like one of those two things is true, or both. This is not about God and their idea of God. It's their trust level of what Jeremiah is telling them or not. That's really what this boils down to, because God's not talking to them.
Exactly. So God continues, because of their wickedness, blah, 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 in which they committed to piss me off.
Yeah.
In that they went to burn incense and to serve other gods whom they did not know, they nor you nor your fathers. Okay.
Okay.
So now that they're in Egypt, they're already at it again with their...
But they've literally never stopped.
Literally, yeah. However, I have sent to you all my servants, the prophets, rising early and sending them saying, oh, do not do this abominable thing that I hate. But they did not listen or incline their ear to turn from their wickedness, to burn no incense to other gods.
I think that maybe Jeremiah was not a morning person. He always mentions how he's rose early, and you don't mention that if it's easy for you to do.
Right.
So I don't think he liked getting up early in the morning. So he was like, I'm getting up early for you fucks.
Yeah.
To tell you this word of God stuff.
Yeah.
So you better fucking listen.
Exactly. So my fury and my anger were poured out and kindled in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, and they are wasted and desolate as it is to this day. Okay, so let me get into some notes here.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
So verse 1 is Jeremiah's final message to the Judeans living in various places throughout Egypt.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And therefore, the Jerusalem Bible suggests that this introduction to Jeremiah's final prophecy represents a message being addressed to the whole Jewish diaspora in Egypt, not just to the remnants that he was standing with.
Got it. So there was people there prior to them even running people had already fled to Egypt.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
And this message is thought to have been delivered in the 17th or 18th year after the taking of Jerusalem.
Okay.
So they've been there like a couple, 1 or 2 decades now.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Like settling in.
Okay. Yeah.
Tahpanhes, like we said last time, is Daphne, and that was the first border point in Egypt.
Okay. All right.
And then Noph is Memphis in Lower Egypt. Pathros is in Upper Egypt.
Okay.
Okay. So there's that. And let's see. Just trying to see where my next set of notes are so I see how far I should read.
Right.
Okay. Now, therefore, thus says the Lord, the God of hosts, the God of Israel, why, assholes, do you commit this great evil against yourselves to cut off from you man and woman, child and infant, out of Judah, leaving none to remain, and that you provoke me to wrath with the works of your hands, burning incense to other gods in the land of Egypt where you have gone to dwell, that you may cut yourselves off and be a curse and a reproach among all the nations of the earth. Like all the other nations give a fuck.
Right. Well, I'm actually a little confused, honestly, because like early on the message was turn yourselves over to Babylon, right? Mm-hmm. And give yourselves up, and you'll live in this other land for 70 years, mm-hmm. and then you'll return to Judah, right? Mm-hmm. And now he's like, why did you leave Judah? Well, it was because you told us to, not to Egypt, but like he told the Israelites that they were going to be out of their land for 70 years. Yes,
but out of their land, given over to Babylon.
Right, sure, but it's still taken over by Babylon. They just happen to be in Egypt. They're still out of their fucking land.
Okay, I'm not really following you. Say it again.
I'm saying that he's saying, why haven't you stayed in Judah? Right. Why haven't you occupied this place mm-hmm. that I have, procured for you and your people? Mm-hmm. He's literally the one that was, regardless of where they went, regardless of how they didn't listen to him to go down to Babylon or whatever, there was earlier on when we were reading through Jeremiah, he was saying that I'm going to kick your asses out of Jerusalem for 70 years.
Right.
Now,
the majority of
this last few chapters, yes, we've had this little some of you get to stay, this remnant gets to stay, but then they decide not to stay. But that wasn't the original plan. The original plan was y'all are going to go away. I'm going to burn this place to the ground. We're going to start over.
Oh, so you're saying since God didn't go ahead and burn them all anyway, who gives a shit where the remnant lives?
Yeah.
Okay. So I read in notes that he always says all when what he really means is most.
You would think, though, a God could be very clear about what he wants and what he says.
You would think. And I'm also like, oh, so are we interpreting God's word again? Are we doing that thing where we're like, this is what God actually meant?
Right. It's whatever's convenient at any given time, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, I thought we weren't supposed to do that.
Right.
And what makes you think that you know that?
Yeah.
Like, why do you get to decide that's what he really means?
I still ask that of people that believe in God today. Like, there's all kinds of people that have there's literally as many people as there are that are religious. Mm-hmm. There's that many fucking opinions about what God is and what it means.
Yeah.
I mean, there is literally no way to talk to someone who is a religious person in any real meaningful sense, because you can't actually hold them to account for any idea that is dispersed through the Bible or through their religion or through their church even.
If they 100% believe everything in the Bible, then you're talking to somebody who legit believes in talking donkeys and all the other bullshit, nonsense, magical things that happened. And that, there have been angels that came down and that floating whatever, what have you.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, so we have nothing to talk about here. If you believe in all of that magical woohoo stuff, we can't even start to talk.
Right, but
and then if they're no, those are just allegories, then the question is, okay, but why are you deciding that?
Right.
It all happened or it didn't happen is the first question. And whichever way you go, you're wrong.
But even if they believed in talking donkeys, even if they believed in all the crazy shit, right? Mm-hmm. If they would just hold to it, mm-hmm. if they would say, yes, this is 100% what Christianity is, right? Mm-hmm. It would be easier to talk to Christians as a whole and say, I don't think that's correct.
Let's talk about how your God did this and your God did that. But there's always
backpedaling.
Yeah.
There's always some sort of a
you read that
excuse.
Wrong. You took it out of context.
Yes.
You just don't get it, or ours is not to know.
Right.
Like that's the ultimate get out of jail free card.
there is no, you can't actually confront someone who believes because
it's not
they
even
don't
confronting. It's like trying to find an actual fucking answer.
Right.
It's not a confrontation.
And I think that's my biggest, like, even when I was searching for answers about God when I was younger, I was not ever satisfactorily able to come up with anybody to give me an answer.
Right.
Because they're so scared of the answer, they can't even give you the answer because they don't know what the fucking answer is either.
No. And so the answer is just always, oh, you're asking too many questions and, you're not coming at this with the right heart. And I'm like, what is the right heart? Can you define that? And
it's
then they're
not
like,
questioning. That's what it is.
Right. Exactly.
You're not supposed to question.
But I don't understand. Then what is it I'm believing again? Tell me.
Why would God create a whole, world of people who have the ability and crave the ability to question things and then expect you not to do it with regard to him?
Well, my thing is, okay, so let's say I go into this without questioning. You spell out on a paper, a list, exactly what I'm supposed to believe.
Right.
And get 25 Christians to all agree from different denominations, right?
Yeah.
Yes, if you believe these 25 things, then you are believing in God and you are a Christian.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
I guarantee you that 25 out of 25 Christians believe that atheists are wrong.
Yes.
That's I can guarantee that.
The only thing that they will agree on. And the Bible is God's word. But even at that, but some of them say it's 100% true.
Sure.
Some of them say it's 100% allegory.
It's a very nuanced argument because you never know, even with just that, what you're talking to someone about, like what they mean by that, what they are trying to convey with that. So
So like I don't get you just have to believe, and I'm just like, believe what exactly now?
Right.
Seriously, I'm not asking to be a smartass. I literally don't know what it is you're asking me in God. But what is that?
Right.
I don't know what you're asking me to believe.
And have you ever noticed how every other Christian that you bring up that you're like, well, I've heard it differently over here, they're like, well, those aren't true Christians. And I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Nobody's a true Christian.
Right.
Didn't you
like
know?
You're the only one, man. You're the only one.
Yep. That's magic.
Right?
There.
Yeah, that's some magic.
Yeah. I'm surprised that your fucking toilet throne doesn't float.
Yeah. Millions of fucking only right Christians. It's amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, continuing on.
Yeah, sorry.
This is God talking, have you forgotten the wickedness of your fathers, the wickedness of the kings of Judah, the wickedness of their wives, your own wickedness, and the wickedness of your wives which they committed in the land of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem? They have not been humbled to this day, nor have they feared.
You just killed a shit ton of them. I think some of them were humbled.
Well, this is like 20 years later.
Still, they like killed them within a life, later. Within a generation.
But these people they're like, whatever, I'm settling in.
All right. Okay.
That was yesteryear.
Right.
All
right.
They have not walked in my law or in my statutes that I set before you and your fathers. Therefore, thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, behold! I will set my face against you, bitches.
Again.
For catastrophe and for cutting off all Judah. And I will take the remnant of Judah who have set their faces to go into the land of Egypt to dwell there. And they shall all be consumed and fall in the land of Egypt.
It's funny. It's only taken him, what you said, about 17 years to get to the point where he's going to actually follow through with this plan.
Yeah.
Those rocks that Jeremiah set there at the entrance, they sat there for a long fucking time.
Right?
I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, God's timeline is so much longer than ours.
Right, yeah.
A blink of his eyes is, checking my watch, about 17 years for us.
Meanwhile, half the people that Jeremiah threatened with those stones are probably already dead. And they're like, well, that never came to pass.
Exactly.
So
they shall be consumed by the sword and by famine. They shall die from the least to the greatest, by the sword and by famine. And they shall be an oath, an astonishment, a curse, and a reproach. This sounds familiar. We read
really
this last night.
I mean, honestly, God spends more time killing Israelites than anybody else.
It's true.
So,
for I will punish those who dwell in the land of Egypt as I have punished Jerusalem by the sword, by famine, and by pestilence. You know those things? So that none of the remnant of Judah who have gone into the land of Egypt to dwell there shall escape or survive, lest they return to the land of Judah, to which they desire to return and dwell. For none shall return except those who escape.
Yeah. If you choose to return
There's a
before
few.
I kill you.
The remnant of the remnant.
Right.
There's going to be a remnant of the remnant.
If you
that
run away
survive.
opposite, then we're going to be good.
Yeah.
But
I'll let them go.
Yeah.
If you escape, you escape. I mean, what? Correct. True.
Yes.
Okay. Then all the men. Oh, God's done talking now.
Okay.
Now we're saying what happens next.
Sure.
Jeremiah's like, boom, I laid down the law.
Right.
15 years later,
They're
bitches.
like, you said the same shit for how many decades
Like,
before?
You're still
So whatever.
alive.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God.
This guy's still talking, man.
Right? Okay. Then all the men who knew that their wives had burned incense to other gods, with all the women who stood by, a great multitude, and all the people who dwelt in the land of Egypt and Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, as for the word that you have spoken to us in the name of the Lord, shit, we will not listen to you. But we will certainly do whatever has gone out of our own mouth to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven and pour out drink offerings to her.
I'm assuming this is a different God.
Not quite.
Okay.
As we have done, we and our fathers, our kings and our princes in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then, they're talking about like the good old days.
Okay.
Like back before Josiah, overturned everything and tried to straighten up and get rid of all the pagan stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
For them, we had plenty of food. We were well off and we saw no trouble. But since we stopped burning incense to the Queen of Heaven and pouring out drink offerings to her, we have lacked everything and have been consumed by the sword and by famine. So the men are like, bring it. What the fuck ever.
Right.
That's
but
all
who the fuck is the Queen of Heaven?
I'm going to get there. Okay.
Right.
The women also said, shit. And when we burned incense to the Queen of Heaven and poured out drink offerings to her, did we make cakes for her to worship her and pour out drink offerings to her without our husband's permission? So the men are like, we've been doing this shit for ages, so back off. And then the women are like, and we didn't have a choice. Our husbands kind of made us, so we're fine.
Right.
All right, so let's get into this. Okay. Let's talk about the Queen of Heaven.
Right. Yeah.
This is a title given to a number of ancient sky goddesses worshipped throughout the ancient Mediterranean and the ancient Near East.
Okay.
Goddesses known to have been referred to by this title include Inanna, Anat, Inanna, Isis, Nut, Astarte, and Ashera.
Ah.
Here we go, right?
Okay. Well, it's funny, though, like, if we go back to some of the hypotheses earlier on, Ashera was often attributed to being
the wife of El.
The wife of El, which is God, essentially, if you bring all this forward, right?
So they've just gone back to their roots is all.
They never left them, though. Like, that's the part that I keep trying to say as we're reading through this, because from what I am understanding from the general populace of Israel, is that these folks never really moved out of their pagan roots.
Right, exactly.
They just, like, maybe they've refined some of their thoughts with regard to what God is and what God isn't, but they've never given up their pagan roots.
No, they never did. You're correct. You are correct.
Yeah.
Astarte is the name of a goddess as known from northwestern Semitic regions. Equivalent would be the goddess Ishtar in Mesopotamian texts.
I've heard that name before. I think maybe we even brought it up before.
We have. Some of this is stuff that we talked about like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So it bears repeating.
It's not anything recent, I know, but I do remember that name. So.
Yeah, Astarte was accepted by the Greeks under the name of Aphrodite.
Oh.
Yeah,
wow.
So we've got Aphrodite, Ashera, Ishtar, Inanna. All these names are the same.
Interesting how all these religions just kind of like meld together, like it's just all right there.
Yep. And they're all like the Queen of Heaven is also like goddess of the moon and fertility and beauty and love. Like it's all mingled together in one big woman.
Because it's essentially the same story, just told in different cultures and retold and retold and retold until it becomes... We've talked about this before too. The game of telephone, right? It's just these things have become their own entities in different lands because they take on a life of their own. So,
Ishtar was the goddess of war and love, and she represented the female principle of fertility, which that's basically what I just said.
Yeah.
Astarte may be the Iron Age incarnation of the Bronze Age Asherah. So the Iron Age would have been after 1200 BCE, and then the Bronze Age would have been up to 1200 BCE.
Right. And that was back, I remember talking about that too, how we were transitioning from one to the other. So,
Yep. So basically, Astarte became Asherah.
Okay.
So, and they're just all the same-ish.
Sure.
Asherah was worshipped in ancient Israel, as we know, as the consort of El, and in Judah as the consort of Yahweh. Oh, which
so it made the transition along.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I mean, but El is Yahweh. You know what I mean? Like depending on what time period we're talking about.
Right. I mean, there's no definitive break as to when El ended and Yahweh began exactly.
Right.
It just
those two stories. Those two gods were like where we get our two different creation stories.
Right.
At the very beginning of Genesis.
Yeah.
One is El and one is Yahweh. And it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Y'all stupid. Anyway, yes, I'm so like full of disdain. I'm sorry. I just am. I can't help it. I'm looking at you with my 2024 glasses on. I cannot help it.
Yeah.
I cannot take them off today.
Right.
Sometimes I can be very respectful, and other times I'm like, nope. Those glasses are glued to my head.
I mean, these things are, it's silly to take these things as seriously as they are taken today. Mm-hmm. Like it's silly on level with Santa or the Easter Bunny.
Right.
You know, like, and
the only problem that we have with it is that the people that believe in this shit are making it to where the measles are coming back.
Right.
Like, fuck off with your goddamn Santa Claus.
Right.
And get your goddamn shots, you dumbasses.
Yes.
Like, literally stop believing in magic and go get your fucking vaccinations.
Right.
Okay. Get off my soapbox. Okay, there was a temple of Yahweh in Egypt at the time of the Judeans entering Egypt, about the 6th to 7th centuries BCE. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And this temple of Yahweh in Egypt was central to the Jewish community at Elephantine, in which Yahweh was worshipped in conjunction with the goddess Anath, who was also named in the temple papyri found in that area as Anath Bethel and Anath Lahu.
Okay. Yeah.
Her counterpart in the New Testament, like we're going to get to the New Testament eventually.
She's got a counterpart in the New Testament, huh?
Yeah, is Artemis. Okay. And in Latin, Diana.
That's in the New Testament?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Apparently.
I've never, okay.
I mean, they may refer to her. I don't fucking know.
Okay.
Like the Romans, right?
Got it.
It would be the Romans talking about.
Right, that's why I was, more, okay. All right.
Yeah, so like right now we're talking about like the Greeks and stuff.
Yeah, right.
And, Egypt. But then when we get into the New Testament, that's going to be the Romans.
Okay.
Right. And so, yeah, Artemis would make sense.
Sure.
But in Latin, it would be Diana. Like Diana was of the moon.
Got it. Yeah.
So she's the moon goddess.
Okay.
So for the Babylonians, the Queen of Heaven was a maternal deity connected with the moon, with family, and with fertility.
Got it.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
And the goddesses Asherah, Anat, and Astarte first appear as distinct and separate deities in the tablets discovered in the ruins of the library of Ugarit, which is modern-day Syria.
Okay.
And most biblical scholars tend to regard these goddesses as one, especially under the title Queen of Heaven.
Okay.
So they were separate entities, but only in that the different people spread out.
Sure.
Might have misnamed her, or her name might have evolved differently over here as to over there.
Sure.
So it is the same fucking person.
Yep.
Okay. So, okay. Let's get back into our chapter.
Okay.
So, the men are like, fuck this, we've been doing this forever. And the women are like, and the husbands let us, so fuck off.
Right.
Okay. So then Jeremiah spoke to all the people, the men, the women, and all the people who had given him that answer, saying, the incense that you burned in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, You and your fathers, your kings and your princes and the people of the land, did not the Lord remember them, and did it not come into his mind? So the Lord could no longer bear it because of the evil of your doings and because of the abominations which you committed. Therefore your land is a desolation, an astonishment, a curse, and without an inhabitant, as it is to this day. Because you have burned incense, and because you have sinned against the Lord, and have not obeyed the voice of the Lord, or walked in his law, in his statutes, or in his testimonies, therefore this calamity has happened to you as at this day. So they're like, no, it happened when Josiah knocked all our statues down. And Jeremiah is like saying, no, stupids, it happened, yes, at that time, but it happened because God ran out of fucking patience.
Right.
And I'm like, you're both wrong.
Yeah.
Moreover, Jeremiah said to all the people and to all the women, hear the word of the Lord, all Judah who are in the land of Egypt. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, saying, you and your wives have spoken with your mouths and fulfilled with your hands, saying, we will surely keep our vows that we have made to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven and pour out drink offerings to her. You will surely keep your vows and perform your vows. Therefore, hear the word of the Lord, all Judah who dwell in the land of Egypt. Behold,
Is he going to fuck him up?
I have sworn by my great name, says the Lord. I swear on me, that my name shall no more be named in the mouth of any man of Judah in all the land of Egypt, saying, the Lord God lives. Behold, bitches, I will watch over them for adversity and not for good. Okay. He's like, fine, y'all promise you're going to keep it up. I promise I'm not going to even help you.
So basically Jeremiah is cursing them at this point.
Yeah.
He's like, fine, y'all don't want to fucking listen to me. I'm going to make God be pissy with you the rest of your fucking lives.
God says he's going to be
whatever.
pissy.
Jeremiah is the one fucking saying it.
He is. And all the men of Judah who are in the land of Egypt shall be consumed by the sword and by famine until there is an end to them. Boom. Yet a small number who escape the sword shall return from the land of Egypt to the land of Judah.
Of course.
And all the remnant of Judah who have gone to the land of Egypt to dwell there shall know those words will stand, mine or theirs. And this shall be a sign to you, says the Lord, that I will punish you in this place, that you may know that my words will surely stand against you for adversity. Don't call me surely. Thus says the Lord, behold, bitches, I will give Pharaoh Hophra, king of Egypt, into the hand of his enemies and into the hand of those who seek his life, as I gave Zedekiah, king of Judah, into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, his enemy who sought his life. Boom, the end.
I am really looking forward to our Q&A this week because we are going to cover some history, right?
Yeah, well, I have some notes now.
Oh, okay.
That
are relevant?
Yeah,
okay.
I needed to look into because I was like, okay, what is happening right now? Like, what time period is this?
Yeah.
All right, so when God says, I will watch over them for adversity and not for good, that was verse 27.
Yeah.
It's possible, actually, that the Jewish community in Egypt heard Jeremiah's warnings and repented because by the time of the New Testament, which we're not at yet, there was a large and strong Jewish community in Egypt. And perhaps they eventually responded in repentance and were spared this judgment.
Wait a second.
That's an apologist.
Yeah, because God literally said, if you don't run away from Egypt, I'm going to punish you and you will die.
Well, he was saying that specifically to that remnant group. People who had already come to Egypt before that and settled in.
But wait, you just got done telling me earlier in this chapter that he was talking to all the people of Egypt. Like all the people that have been there before. And all the people that, you know.
I have no idea.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean. It
just depends on what chapter and what verse you're in, babe. And it depends on the mood. And it depends on the pastor. And it also depends on which apologist you're reading.
Right.
Okay. As to who he's speaking to.
Well, and you know what? If pastors and preachers and priests and all these people could just admit that they're not fucking sure.
That would be awesome.
That'd be a step in the right direction. Right?
Yeah.
Because The truth is you're not fucking sure.
See-
I'm reading this book and I can tell you 100%, I don't care how much fucking studying you did, you are not sure because no one is sure.
What I got out of this is, wait, so then that shit didn't happen then? Oh,
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I got out of it.
Exactly.
Okay. So, but let's go on because I have some more notes.
Sure.
Okay. In that last verse, Jeremiah tells them of the judgment to come upon the Pharaoh and of Egypt. Okay.
Yep.
So Hophra or Apries was, and we've talked about him before because he's the guy that's happening right there.
Sure.
You know, right at that moment.
Yep.
He was the fourth king of the 26th dynasty of Egypt.
Okay.
And he ruled from 589 to 570 BCE. Okay.
So like right after the Babylonian people came, like he took over as Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
Babylon was taking over Israel, basically.
Yes, correct. He forged an alliance with Zedekiah to rebel against Babylon. Remember, that was in Jeremiah 37.
Right.
He sent an army in the summer of 588 BCE, but that action failed to prevent the fall of Jerusalem in 587.
Sure.
Okay,
Yep.
so we remember all that. Okay, Apries or Hophra, whichever you prefer to call him,
Yep.
his unsuccessful attempt to intervene in the politics of the kingdom of Judah was followed by a mutiny of soldiers from the strategically important Aswan garrison. Okay, because he had some mercenaries with him. Okay.
Yeah.
And the fact that they like turned tail and let Babylon go ahead and get their get.
That's what caused the problems with the...
That started the downfall of this dude. Not Egypt, this dude.
Got it, yeah.
A recently uncovered stela from Tepanese records that Nebuchadnezzar attempted to invade Egypt in 582 BCE.
Okay.
But Apries or Hophra's forces were able to repel the invasion.
Okay.
Which is cool.
So it never actually came to pass what God predicted here.
I got a little bit more,
All right.
but not in the big way God was shouting about.
Right, yeah.
A civil war broke out in the Egyptian army between the indigenous troops versus the foreign mercenaries that Hophra had.
Yeah.
I'm going to call him Hophra because that other name is more difficult for me.
Sure.
Okay. So the Egyptians threw their support to a very successful general under Hophra's father. This guy had a lot of success under Hophra's father back in the day before he died.
Right.
This general was named Amasis. Okay.
Yep.
So Amasis quickly declared himself pharaoh in 570 BCE.
As you do. Right.
Okay. And Hophra fled Egypt and he sought refuge in a foreign country. And when Hophra marched back to Egypt in 567 BCE with the aid of a Babylonian army to reclaim the throne of Egypt.
Oh, wow.
He was likely killed in battle with Amasis's forces.
I see.
So
he even became a traitor.
Yeah.
Like this guy, like he was like, hey, I'll work with you guys if you help me get my seat back.
Yeah. Can you please help me get my throne?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out for him.
Right. So, I mean, everybody was like, I hate Babylon. And then they're like, Babylon, can you help me a little bit, please?
Right.
Even Egypt. Yeah. So Amasis, that general guy, he married Hophra's daughter to legitimize his ascension to power. And he continued to rule until his death in 526 BCE.
Oh, so he ruled for a good long while.
Yeah, he did. Like a good 50 plus years.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, what?
Yeah.
And apparently he was like a very successful king as well as a very successful general.
Right.
Because, I mean,
he held off God.
Yeah. Right?
According,
that's
what I'm hearing anyway.
So scripture is silent on what happened to Jeremiah after the events of this chapter.
They killed him because he's an idiot.
Though tradition offers
Sorry, that's just my opinion.
Though tradition offers several legends concerning his death.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So one legend states that he was killed at Daphne, that one city.
Okay. Yeah.
Tepanese.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Another claims he carried away the tabernacle, hiding it in the mountains where Moses died.
Hold on.
Wait.
Tabernacle?
Hold on. That story is actually recorded in 2nd Maccabees, which
really
is one of the books that we actually have listed as
a follow-up type book.
As part of what we're going to read.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it's included in our Bible-y thing that we're reading.
Got it.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently, according to 2 Maccabees, he picked up the tabernacle and carried it away to Moses Mountain.
I didn't even know the tabernacle was still around.
Right? Like what are you even talking about?
When did that happen again?
Right? Yeah. So that's interesting.
Wasn't that like had to be carried by like the Levites had to carry it with like four pole or whatever, four people? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then yet another legend indicates that he was alive with Enoch and Elijah, expected to return as a forerunner of the Messiah.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
That's probably more of a Christian type thing.
Yeah.
You know, how it be.
Right.
So I tend to think that he was probably killed at Daphne.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't like him at all.
Because that's where they had stopped, right? Like that's where he was basically delivering this message.
Yeah.
And he was like, you guys all suck. And they were like, really? Okay, yeah. We're going to kill this dude, right?
Right.
And then I'm pretty sure they did.
I'm so done with this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and, him being a traitor and a loudmouth.
Right, yeah. No, and it's very, very, very clear to me that there is definite undertones of being a traitor.
Yeah.
Like he's the people think it. He's alluded to it. Like, I mean, just like it's all there.
Yes.
So...
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, there are 52 chapters of Jeremiah. We're at 44. So there are 8 more chapters of this book. And so do they go back before
who knows?
Jeremiah? Or do they talk about some more Babylonian exile stuff and just without Jeremiah?
Could be.
Or is the rest like Baruch summing up what happened with the history or something? Like, I legit do not know.
Well, we're going to find out soon enough, I guess, right?
I love ending on a cliff note where I'm like, but what happened next? How do we have... Isn't that what I said?
You said cliff note.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Sorry, that was my dyslexia brain happening again. Yes, cliffhanger, where I'm like, what's happening next? I don't know. I don't understand. Where are we going from here?
Right. Yeah, well, I guess we will find out soon. So that was Jeremiah chapter 44.
Correct.
Which means that we will be back tomorrow with...
Jeremiah chapter 45.
All right, we'll see you then.
Bye. Husband.
Wife.
Do you remember what happened yesterday and where the hell we are today?
Well, yesterday we read Jeremiah chapter 44.
We sure as fuck did.
And in that chapter, God was like, y'all like brought this on yourselves. Mm-hmm. You were worshiping idols and like that's why all the bad shit happened. And then they were like, no, we were worshiping idols, and that's when all the good shit happened.
And they were like all up about the Queen of Heaven.
Yeah.
And the Asherah poles just never seemed to go away.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah. And God was like, I'm going to kill all you fuckers here in Israel unless you run away back to
Egypt.
Oh, yeah, in Egypt. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then unless you run away back to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And then he never did.
Right.
At least, according to your research anyway.
Yeah.
So Nebuchadnezzar tried, but didn't succeed.
Correct.
So,
and also, what did happen though is the king, Pharaoh, whoever guy, Apries,
right,
Hophra, of Egypt. He did get assassinated or whatever.
Well, he got replaced, and then he ran away, and then he came back, and they killed him in battle.
Yeah,
probably.
Right.
So
by the captain of his father's guard.
Right. Who then was a good king apparently, or at least an effective king at the very least.
Effective, yeah.
Pharaoh. Yeah. But yeah. So that was Jeremiah chapter 44.
And that was also the final chapter in that narrative.
Yeah.
So that bears.
I am very interested to see how this all plays out post
narrative.
Post that narrative, yeah. And post, like, does Jeremiah even speak from here forward? I don't know.
We've got 8 chapters left.
And it's still the book of Jeremiah. Yeah, right. So this should be interesting.
Exactly.
So anyway, that was Jeremiah chapter 44.
Yes, it was.
Which means that today we're getting into
Jeremiah chapter 45.
All right, let's do this.
Okie dokie. Okay, we are getting into Jeremiah chapter 45.
Okay.
But a couple notes real quick.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
Obviously, we just finished a narrative.
We did.
So we're like, oh, if we finish that narrative and that was the last time that Jeremiah
speaks or whatever
spoke to the people, then what's left?
Right. Yeah.
So this chapter actually goes back in time.
Okay.
And do you remember that time period when Jeremiah was like, hey, Baruch, I can't go into that temple area. Can you go over there and read this shit out loud for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what this is. Okay?
Why are we jumping back there? Like, this makes no sense.
You would have to ask Baruch. He's the one that put all of this in order.
Oh, we know that for that's a thing?
That's a thing.
Okay.
That's a thing. And I'll tell you more when we get into this, okay?
Okay.
Okay, right. I just wanted to tell you when this takes place.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the word that Jeremiah the prophet spoke to Baruch, the son of Neriah, when he had written these words in a book at the instruction of Jeremiah in the 4th year of Joachim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, saying, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, to you, O Baruch. And it's like, oh, excuse me. Like, Baruch gets his own special message.
Right.
That's part of why it came later. Because Baruch was like...
Is Baruch is this like post Jeremiah's influence? And like Baruch's like, I'm going to get some influence in myself here.
Maybe. Maybe not, though.
Okay.
Okay, let me read what he says to him, and then you decide for yourself.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, this is Jeremiah speaking to Baruch as God. Okay. You said, woe is me now, Baruch, for the Lord has added grief to my sorrow. I fainted in my sighing and I find no rest. So basically he's like, Baruch, you were whining and getting upset and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thus you shall say to him, God is telling Jeremiah to tell Baruch. Yeah. Thus says the Lord, behold, what I have built, I will break down, and what I have planted, I will pluck up. That is this whole land. And do you seek great things for yourself? Do not seek them, for behold, I will bring adversity on all flesh, says the Lord, but I will give your life to you as a prize in all places wherever you go. The end.
Oh, that was the end of the chapter?
Yes.
Wow.
Now, Jesus,
this is like might as well call this a psalm.
I know. But here's the thing. Like, this actually makes Baruch not look good. Like, the fact that he included this, he's like, I was like really in my feels about what was happening. Like, I was not thrilled. Everything about me was going to shit. My buddy was in jail. I was in danger.
Right.
Our reputations were ruined. And, I was moaning and groaning, and God heard that.
Yeah.
And told fucking Jeremiah to deliver me, not Israel, not the Jews, not all of Judah, not kings and stuff, but me personally.
Yeah.
A message from God to stop all that, to stop fussing.
I don't know. But if you're Jeremiah, right? I feel like it's hard to stop that. Like, if you're constantly talking for God, and that's your whole way of communicating your ideas is like to say what God told you to say.
Right. Then you're going to
if you want Baruch to stop whining.
God says stop whining. But the fact that Baruch didn't put it in order, left it out, and went ahead and included it, and then included it later after Jeremiah's story was basically done.
Yeah.
That actually doesn't do any favors for Baruch except to make him look more upstanding and like, wow, good on you, sir. I would not have included that.
Right, I guess. I don't know. I mean, but I still wonder how this is going to play out. Is it if he's going to try to gain a little bit more notoriety?
Well, here's the thing. Let me read you some of my notes.
Okay. Yeah.
My notes are basically as long as the chapter.
Got it.
Which isn't much.
Right.
Right? So this happened during the 4th year of Joachim, which was 605 BCE.
Okay.
So, I mean, we were way back, like 30 years ago or whatever. Right. And this part should have followed chapter 36.
Okay.
Okay. The previous chapters in this section, that narrative that we just read, those dealt with the time after the fall of Jerusalem and Judah, whereas this chapter deals with a time many years before that catastrophe.
Right.
Duh.
Right. Yeah.
Jeremiah gave this word of encouragement to his assistant Baruch on the occasion when Baruch had to read the scroll of God's judgments to the people. So remember I told you that Jeremiah was like, dude, can you go read this shit for me?
Right.
Okay. So Baruch is lamenting because this is right after the king had given an order to take both Baruch and Jeremiah in order that they might be put to death at the instance of his nobles.
Right.
So they had just been sentenced to death.
Right. And I can see from Baruch's point of view, like,
this is
what the fuck have I got myself into here?
Yes. Yes. Now let me read a few more notes and then we'll discuss again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So Baruch was an educated man, qualified as a secretary, whose brother was an officer of high rank under Zedekiah.
Okay.
He probably had entertained hopes of some distinction in the nation, perhaps of attaining a high office, or even of receiving the gift of prophecy himself, like being named a prophet or something. He came from an affluent and very educated family. And, you know,
sure,
he probably grew up being told you're going to do great things because that's just the way it is.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But whatever great things he sought for himself were forfeited by his loyal support of Jeremiah.
Sure.
So Baruch was thinking how his unpopular announcements might affect his own security or advancement. But Jeremiah comes along and tells him, dude, when divine judgment falls on Judah, you're going to be thankful enough just to come out of it alive.
Right.
Like, that's what we were supposed to take from that. See, I took it differently. When I was reading it, I thought that God was telling Jeremiah to tell Baruch, you know, hey, don't worry about it. Whatever happens, you're still going to live. It's going to be okay. You're going to survive.
Right.
But what every single note taker took out of it was, you're going to be grateful just to be alive. Not just, don't worry, you'll be okay, you'll survive, and you'll just be glad to have done so.
Right. And I question, he must have lived. Like if they say that he put the book together, right? Like there was this whole thing that happened when they're heading into Egypt. He must have lived. One of them must have lived.
Yeah.
At the very least. Yeah. And, you know, since we don't hear from Jeremiah, I'm assuming Baruch lived, right? Yeah. And so at least he lived, I guess. Like he was told he would live. He was definitely not in a good position there because they thought he was part of that whole double agent shit too. Yeah. So like they thought he was part of this problem. Right. And I would imagine that if he did make it out of that situation, that he was lucky to get out of that situation. Right. So
which kind of goes along with what he said that Jeremiah told him. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know what to think. I don't think that he was trying to paint himself in a good light because he didn't. Right. And I don't think that he was trying to attain anything with this because he didn't.
Right. But it would make sense to me also, like, and I don't know where this is going to go from here towards the end of the book of Jeremiah.
I don't either. I have not read ahead. I don't have notes ahead.
Right. But I would imagine that if Baruch did live through that ordeal in heading into Egypt, that, you know, with his ideas and his aspirations of becoming more, he probably wanted to sell his, you know, what Jeremiah did for good. Right. And that's maybe why this book is so prominent and why it made it into things. Because maybe Baruch did a good sales job after the fact. Okay. Maybe he ran to Babylon and then went and, you know, like the people over in Egypt obviously didn't like him, right?
Right. So the Jewish people in Egypt. Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how the Egyptians felt.
Yeah. So maybe he spent another 10 days running back to Babylon and then went with the remnant that actually was captured in by the Babylonians, and maybe he stayed with them and said, and like he's like, forget this Egypt crowd. I'm going to just pitch the story over here because maybe they'll listen and see how right Jeremiah was.
Right. That could actually be.
Right.
That actually tracks.
And from their point of view, they would still see Babylon heading to attack Egypt, and they'd be like, well, yeah, it's still coming true. He's still predicting that stuff.
Yeah.
This is all correct.
Yeah.
So he has a good sales pitch,
That's true. And painting himself as humble and not looking for anything more does paint him in the light of believability for the people that he's trying to be a salesman to.
Right. And he got, his name, we're still talking about it 2,000 years later.
That's true.
So, he did something right to have his name remembered 2,000 years later.
That is true. And, you are right.
I just saying.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that this was such a short chapter.
Yeah.
And it was like maybe 10 sentences. But
I think we were clamoring to talk about Baruch too. So But
I didn't know until I was reading my notes that that's what this was about.
Right.
And yeah, definitely very, very interesting to be so short and to find out there are still questions about Baruch.
Yeah.
We kind of know what happened to Jeremiah, but what happened to Baruch?
Right. Right.
So I'm not sure what our Q&A is going to be about, but I am going to be looking to see if there is any mention or legend of Baruch, and I am going to look into some legends about Jeremiah.
And did we need to look into any more of the history of the wars going on back then, or did you cover most of that already?
I covered most of that.
Okay. Right.
In yesterday's episode, I think.
Gotcha.
So it kind of took care of itself.
Sure.
That was going to be a question that we looked into, but
right. Yep.
No need to now.
All right. Well, that was Jeremiah chapter 45.
Sure as fuck was.
Which means that we will be back tomorrow on Saturday with
Q&A Saturday. Not sure what I'm gonna cover, but we'll see.
Right. And then on Sunday, we didn't do a book club last week, so I'm assuming maybe that's what we're doing?
That is correct.
So,
we will be doing Sacrilegious Book Club.
All right. And then I will get the weekly wrap-up out, and then we'll be back on Monday with
Jeremiah chapter 46, and who even knows what's that's about and who's in it.
Yeah, I'm very curious.
I am too, which is a nice thing to be able to say.
Yeah. We'll see you guys then.
Bye. Husband.
Wife.
Guess what today is?
Well, it is Saturday, which means
Q&A Saturday.
And
I'm really excited about it.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. You threw me off again.
I know. Well, I wasn't sure if I wanted to shout or sing, so I kind of did boom.
Got it. And what are we Qing and Aing today?
We are going over some Baruch shit.
Baruch shit, huh?
Yeah, these were some of the questions that we had. What happened to Jeremiah and Baruch? Are there any other legends, stories, or traditions about them? Did Baruch go on with the remnant in Egypt, or did he go back to Babylon? Did they both just die and disappear into the annals of history? How did Baruch put together Jeremiah's story? At what point did it become official OT material?
Okay.
We had all these questions.
Yeah. I didn't realize we had so many questions, but I want to know all that.
I was sitting there and I was like, I need to know these things.
Right.
I answer most of them today.
Okay. Are you ready to do this?
I am so fucking ready to do this.
Then let's do it.
Okie dokie. Baruch is on fire.
You have been dying to do that. I know you have.
Yes.
You mentioned, I don't know if it was on the podcast or not, but you mentioned that was what it reminded you of. I don't know why, but it did.
Because it's...
And now I can't hear his name without thinking of that fucking reference. So thanks for that.
We're going to learn about him today.
Yeah, I know.
Q&A.
It's like one of your last chances to get that out. So
true.
You just had to do it.
There's only so much of Jeremiah left.
Yeah.
And then...
Especially Baruch, maybe.
Although, I think Lamentations follows Jeremiah. Mm-hmm. And I think Baruch wrote that one too, or Jeremiah did, or both of them did together.
Okay.
I don't know. There's some shit.
We'll find out when we get there, right?
Yeah. All right, so listen to this.
I'm listening.
Okay, so remember when we had to go back in time, right? Because up through chapter 44 was like this neat narrative, and then they went away with into Egypt, right?
Yeah, and
with
then
the
we went
remnant.
back like 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were like, just kidding. It never happened yet.
Right.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
So that's where we're going to start here, okay?
Okay.
Both Baruch and Jeremiah witnessed the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem of 587 to 586 BCE.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of the siege of Jerusalem, while in prison, Jeremiah purchased an estate in Anathoth, remember that?
Yes.
On which the Babylonian armies had encamped as a symbol of faith in the eventual restoration of Jerusalem.
Okay. Yeah.
And Baruch continued to reside with him at Mizpah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm just kind of like catching us up to, give us a little background.
Recap.
Yeah. Yeah. So Baruch was carried with Jeremiah to Egypt, where, according to tradition, he soon died. Okay.
Oh.
So, but there's other stories out there.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2 other traditions state that he later traveled or was taken by force to Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar after that king's conquest of Egypt.
Okay.
And
wait, conquest of Egypt. I thought he attacked Egypt and it didn't go so well.
right.
So that's okay.
Conquest is probably the wrong word.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
So,
fought on the
attempt.
outskirts of Egypt or
Right.
something. Yeah. Okay.
Right. I
All right.
mean, he tried. It was
Yeah.
a battle.
And he probably
whatever.
won a battle or two or something.
Sure.
But he didn't conquest.
No. Conquest is way too strong an adjective or verb there.
Right.
Or noun, whatever the fuck it is.
Sure.
Anyway, another rabbinic tradition suggests that Baruch returned to Babylon after he witnessed Jeremiah's death by stoning and buried his body.
See, that's the one I was thinking probably happened.
Right?
Because they didn't like Jeremiah at all.
At all. They stoned his ass, and not in the good way.
Yeah.
So rabbinical literature describes Baruch as a faithful helper and a blood relative of Jeremiah, which I didn't know.
I didn't either.
I think they were like distant cousins maybe or some shit.
Okay. All right.
So Baruch and Jeremiah being descendants of the proselyte Rahab. Do you remember Rahab? Rahab was a good one.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this must have served as a humiliating example to their contemporaries, because they were like, the people who are around them, right?
Yeah.
We're looking at them like, how far you've fallen.
Got it.
Because y'all are talking shit. You're getting beat up in public. You're going to jail.
Right.
And, you're doing this weird, wacky God stuff. And, your family must be so embarrassed.
But still, his book ended up in the Bible somehow.
But they didn't know that at the time.
Right.
And remember, during our last episode, we suggested that perhaps it was because Baruch was such a good salesman.
Right.
Which I tend to think maybe is the case.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
So, these guys belong to the few who hearkened to the word of God, right?
Yeah.
Nobody else in their family, like, we don't know them. They weren't like hardcore prophesizing,
Prophets.
doing the
prophets.
doing the prophecies.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So, okay, one midrash, that's the Jewish writings.
Yeah.
Okay. One midrash regards Baruch as synonymous with the Ethiopian Abed Melech, the guy who pulled Jeremiah out of the jail.
Okay.
Who rescued Jeremiah from the dungeon, and states that he received his name Baruch, which means blessed, because of his piety. Recall, Abed Melech meant servant to the king. So there was like a question over whether that was his actual name or title. And even if it was his name, it was a nameless name.
I call bullshit on that one.
Okay.
I mean, only because Abed Melech was like right at the end, right before they got captured by Babylon, like right before the city fell at Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like that story about him was there, and Baruch definitely was in the story before that.
Yes, I hear you, and I don't disagree with you. I just am going to point out, though, that all this shit is out of order.
Right.
And it would have been possible that he was granted a name blessed to replace his previous position title of king servant guy.
Okay. All right.
I'm just saying it is a possibility.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
According to one story, though, because Baruch's piety might have prevented the destruction of the temple, God commanded Baruch to leave Jerusalem before the catastrophe so as to remove Baruch's protective presence.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
According to
I
this
didn't know
account,
Baruch was so important, honestly.
well, he had so much piety. It was such a goody-goody.
I see.
Okay. Even better than Jeremiah, right?
I didn't know that.
Right? No, I mean,
They didn't make that clear in the Bible. Anyway.
no, this is just, again, this is just another story
Other
out
stories,
there. Okay.
right. Yeah.
According to this account, Baruch then saw from Abraham's oak at Hebron the temple set on fire by angels who previously had hidden the sacred vessels.
I see.
Right?
So it was angels that burned down the temple.
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just,
whatever.
I'm gathering
I feel
stories.
like maybe he was, if that's the story, I think he might have been on drugs. So
Sure.
just saying.
Probably. So there's this group of rabbinic sages whose views are recorded in the Mishnah from approximately 10 to 220 current era CE.
Okay.
They are called the Tanaim.
Okay.
Tanaim.
All right.
Okay. And they were very divided on the question of whether Baruch should be classified among the prophets.
Oh, Baruch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, like, was he a prophet? No, but he was very important and good.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I know we're not at the New Testament yet, but like Mary gets classified with them and she wasn't doing any prophets.
Right.
You know, she
Right.
didn't do prophet shit.
Sure.
She just merely carried the Christ child in her body.
Right.
But so I'm just saying, like, there are examples of people not being prophets who get prophet status.
Got it.
So why should he be different? So according to one of these guys, the Tanaim, Baruch complained because the gift of prophecy had not been given to him. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Baruch therefore found consolation in the fact that when Israel was exiled to Babylon, there was no longer occasion for prophecy.
Okay.
So he's like, good. If I can't be a prophet, nobody can. Ha! That's like the people that are like, I had to pay for college and be in debt for thousands of years and millions of dollars.
So everybody should.
Everybody else has to as well.
Right.
Okay, so there's a different one of those Tanaim guys. Okay, those sagey guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy, as well as the Talmud, they do include Baruch among the prophets and state that he prophesied in the period following the destruction.
Oh. Okay.
So there is not agreement as to whether or not he's classified as a prophet.
Got it. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It was in Babylonia also that Ezra studied the Torah with Baruch.
Oh.
Yeah. Like,
Wow.
I didn't realize that those tours overlapped.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Like, this going back and forth in time is really confusing when you're trying to line up. Wait, you said somebody, his contemporaries. Who were his contemporaries? Because I don't hold year number things in my brain.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, he was there with Ezra. Okay.
Yeah.
And they was doing their studying together.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yep.
And he did not think of returning to Judea during his teacher's lifetime, since he considered the study of the Torah more important than the rebuilding of the temple. And thus, Baruch could not join the returning exiles by reason of his age.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was some Jewish legends, okay?
Got it.
Some Christian legends, especially from Syria and Arabia. Oh my God, you're going to love this.
Okay.
Identify Baruch with Zoroaster, a.k.a. Zarathustra.
Okay.
You know that guy, Zarathustra? Like,
No.
there's that philosophy book, Thus Spake Zarathustra.
Okay.
Oh.
It vaguely rings a bell.
I thought that was the one that you made me read.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, you made me read some philosophy book, and the dude's name
Siddhartha?
Oh, Siddhartha. Never mind. Oh, shit. Okay.
Like way
yeah,
something
totally different. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I had my letters confused.
Yeah.
Like a Z and a S, they kind of make similar sounds. And so, like, that's how I store names sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I fucked that up. But anyway, so Baruch was sometimes identified with Zarathustra, a religious reformer and the spiritual founder of Zoroastrianism.
Okay.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
Because what the fuck is that about?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In about 1000 BCE, he founded the first documented monotheistic religion in the world.
Oh.
And also had an impact on Plato, Pythagoras, and the Abrahamic religions, including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think that maybe is where I've heard this before, like as a precursor to, God, essentially.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Zoroastrians believe that he was a prophet who transmitted God's messages and founded a religious movement that challenged the existing traditions of ancient Iranian religion. Okay.
Okay.
So it's a common belief, but only in one small area.
Sure.
So, like, if you're in that circle, it's super common. You go out of that circle and not so much.
Right.
But still.
Yeah.
These Christian legends give much information concerning Baruch. Okay.
Okay.
So, listen to this.
Remind me again, how does Baruch relate to the zero whatever?
He might be that guy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're saying
But
that
if this was founded 1,000 years BCE, how does that even come close to Baruch?
I don't know.
Okay.
What the fuck do I know?
All right.
I'm just telling you what the story says.
Yeah.
Okay. So, angry because the gift of prophecy had been denied him. I mean, we talk about that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
He was so salty.
Yep.
And on account of the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple, he left Israel to found the religion of Zoroaster. Okay. The prophecy of the virgin birth of Jesus and the story of the adoration of the Magi is also ascribed to Baruch Zoroaster.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that those stories predated Christianity.
Yeah.
So
it's not hard to believe that somebody was out there singing that song.
But it's interesting that maybe this guy is the original.
He's the OG.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It is difficult to explain the origin of this curious identification of a prophet with a magician, such as Zoroaster was held to be.
Okay.
Among the Jews, Christians, and Arabs. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Right.
Okay. So one thought is that in Arabic, the name of the prophet Jeremiah is almost identical with that of the city of Urmia, where it is said Zoroaster lived.
Okay.
So I don't.
Sure.
I'm like, I think you're stretching, but okay.
Right.
In some stories, Zoroaster was believed to be a descendant of Ham.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
And according to Genesis chapter 10, Cush, the Ethiopian, is a son of Ham. According to this tale, the Persians believed that Zoroaster had been taken into heaven in a chariot. And according to the Jewish legend, the above-mentioned Ethiopian was transported alive into paradise, an occurrence that, like the translation of Elijah, must have taken place by means of a vehiculum.
A vehiculum, huh?
Which I had to look that up. It just is some physical transportation. That's where the word vehicle comes from.
Got it. So that's why, like, there was it Samuel or one? No. Who was it?
Elijah.
Oh, it was Elijah. Okay, yeah. He went into heaven in a chariot.
Yeah, they call that translation.
Got it.
He was translated into.
But there has to be a vehicle, essentially, to get them there somehow.
Yes.
So that's why they're in a chariot.
Exactly.
Okay. All
yeah.
Right.
The Catholic Church considers Baruch a saint.
Wow.
And his official feast days are September 28th and November 15th.
Got it.
And that is a whole different bag of worms. We're going to put a pin in that.
Yeah.
But we mentioned way back, like a couple years ago, that we wanted to do maybe an episode on like saints, sainthood, saint feast days. Like,
well,
what
I feel
the fuck
like
is
maybe
all that?
like when we're done with the Bible, we should like go ham on the saints and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Just because that's something that I've always been curious about.
Same.
And I would like to know more about them. So I feel like at some point we ought to do a series on, Catholic saints and whatnot.
Yeah, the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, apparently
not even the big ones. I'm interested in the small ones even, because sometimes you get some really weird, interesting stories out of some of the stuff,
It's true. Well, apparently Baruch is one of them.
Okay. Yeah.
So I still have more story to go. Okay.
Yeah.
So the location of the tomb of Baruch is unknown. Legends place it a mile away from Ezekiel's tomb near the town of Mashhad Ali. However, there is no record of it actually existing. Okay. Rabbinic sources reported that a strange plant, the leaves of which are sprinkled with gold dust, grows on the site of his grave.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And other legends.
We don't know where it is, but we know that there's a strange plant
with gold on it.
Dust on it. That's okay. All right. Yeah.
Other legends suggest that the tomb is said to have been miraculous as well.
Oh, damn. He's like Jesus, huh?
Yeah. It was supposedly a place for Jewish pilgrimage.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Doesn't that sound fun? Let's go on a trip.
This guy's kind of a big deal, maybe.
Right?
Sort of.
He's a big deal in that his name is like sprinkled through various legends.
Yeah.
So it's like...
He almost made it. He was almost famous,
right?
Yeah.
He's like the guy who was like, he wrote a really good blog, and if he had kept at it, like everybody
might have made it someday.
Because everybody knew about his blog, but like nobody knew about his blog except for other bloggers.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was big in his circle.
Sure.
Yeah. So, okay. Anyway, there is actually a tomb within a mosque in Kifil, a town in southeastern Iraq on the Euphrates River that is dedicated to Baruch.
Really?
Yeah. And corresponding with the earlier legend, it is located near to the supposed tomb of Ezekiel, which is also in the same building.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
So, okay, we have more. I was just like, oh, give me more, give me more.
Right.
Okay. So the book of Baruch is a deuterocanonical book of the Bible.
Wait, there's a book of Baruch?
There's a book of fucking Baruch.
You gotta be kidding me.
There's 8 fucking books of Baruch.
What?
Right? Yeah. Like,
wow.
Hello, I'm sorry. What? But they're considered deuterocanonical, meaning whoever wrote, Deuteronomy on forward.
Yeah.
Like, it belongs to that canon.
Okay.
And it's used in many Christian traditions, such as Catholic and Orthodox churches.
Huh.
So the first and the second one particularly, there's the first and second books of Baruch. What?
Really?
Yeah. What? Didn't you know that?
No.
Yeah. Me neither.
Right.
Like, what's a fucking Baruch? I'll tell you.
Yeah.
He's a thing. He's a guy.
Right. Yeah. He's taking on a lot more importance than I thought he deserved or had.
He's got mad swag.
Apparently.
He's got riz. In Judaism and Protestant Christianity, it is considered not to be part of the canon. Okay?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're like, get that shit out of here.
We're kind of surprised by this. So,
yeah. And the Protestant Bibles categorize it as a part of the biblical apocrypha.
Okay.
They're like, that's not real. It doesn't get stapled in with these that are also not real, but we like them.
That whole thing just really just blows me away. So sort of like I don't.
Like how is what ended up in the Bible more real and more like God given or what the fuck ever than whatever Baruch said, which backed up Jeremiah?
I think we reached a certain point in Bible history, like the history of the Bible, where these certain religions had their set pieces that they were reading. And they're like, this is all there is.
Well, we know that happened with the printing press.
Right.
Once they became common, it's like, oh, this is solid now. It's set in stone.
Yeah.
And I even made the comment that it's funny, like when things actually were set in stone back in the day.
Right. They were less set in stone.
Yeah. They could change it willy-nilly anytime, but it's on paper and ink and we could type some shit up, whatever. Right. But no, it is set in stone.
Sure.
Like that. I just find that ironic.
Yeah.
Okay, so the book of Baruch is named after Baruch ben Neriah, the
Right.
prophet Jeremiah's scribe. Okay, just to remind you who we're talking about.
Sure.
Who has been presumed to be the author of the whole work. Okay.
Okay.
The book is a reflection of a late Jewish writer on the circumstances of Jewish exiles from Babylon, with meditations on the theology and history of Israel, discussions of wisdom, and a direct address to residents of Jerusalem and their diaspora.
Diaspora.
Diaspora. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
It's one of those words that I know it from reading, and that's the first time I ever said it out loud. Like recipe.
What?
Recipe? Yeah. In 5th grade, I had never said that word out loud.
Yeah.
I knew it. I knew what it was. I knew what it meant.
Right.
And I said recipe, and oh my God, the class, they were mean. They laughed at me.
Right.
They were all going to laugh at me, and they did.
Yeah.
And that's not fair, because I'm a solid reader. I know all the best words, but if you don't hear them pronounced, you don't know.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
So don't just
So
read.
I take it your mom didn't use a lot of recipes when you were growing up?
I mean, it's okay. My brain also has this thing where it doesn't connect things. Like she probably said recipe 100,000 times, but I never connected her verbal use of the word
to the written word.
The written down thing.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no.
Okay. All right.
But that's why I'm such a fan of audiobooks and podcasts, because I'm able to hear how words and terms and phrases are actually supposed to be used.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's way off topic. So some scholars propose that the book of Baruch was written during or shortly after the period of the Maccabees.
Okay.
What the fuck are the Maccabees, right?
Well, let's
talk about some Maccabees a little bit here.
Sure.
Okay. So the Maccabees were a group of Jewish rebel warriors who took control of Judea, which at the time was part of the Seleucid Empire.
Okay.
They founded the Hasmonean dynasty, which ruled from 167 to 37 BCE. So the Maccabees happened like right after the Babylonian exile.
Wait. You said 167 to 37 BCE.
Mm-hmm.
The Babylonian exile happened in 587 BCE.
I thought that was 3 something.
No.
But a lot of this stuff was happening in 300 something.
Okay, but Baruch wouldn't have been anywhere near alive.
No. But we're talking now about the Maccabees.
Okay.
And so the Maccabees founded this dynasty, okay?
Yeah.
And they reasserted the Jewish religion, expanded the boundaries of Judea by conquest, and reduced the influence of Hellenism and Hellenistic Judaism. And I don't know if you're aware, but Hellenism is Greek influence.
Right. No,
I'm sure you knew that, but there may be somebody out there who didn't.
Yeah.
So that's what Hellen means.
Right.
Hellenistic stuff is Greek stuff.
Okay.
So the Maccabean story is preserved in the books of the 1st and 2nd Maccabees.
Okay.
Which describe in detail the rededication of the temple in Jerusalem and the lighting of the menorah.
Okay.
So it's odd that it's not in our Bible, because it's pretty fucking important, which I thought it was, because I had been looking at a Catholic.
Yeah, you said the other day.
I was like,
I didn't think
I would have bet my life on it.
I didn't want to argue with you.
No, I would have bet my life on it, because I had seen it in a separate Bible that I reference sometimes, but it's got more Jewish and some Catholic stuff in it.
Right.
So the Maccabees are all up in that.
Yeah.
So, okay. So these books were not part of the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, which came from the Jewish canon. However, they were part of the Septuagint, the Greek stuff.
Okay.
Which is funny, because like the Maccabees were trying to get rid of Greek stuff.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So it's interesting.
Yeah. But the Septuagint was written by that Greek pharaoh, which that would have been Egypt, not necessarily Greek. Mm-hmm. So the influences would have been different influences.
That's true. So. That's true. Both books are included in the Old Testament used by the Catholic and Orthodox churches. Since those churches consider the books deuterocanonical. So they count.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They are not included in the Old Testament books in most Protestant Bibles, since most Protestants consider the books apocryphal. How dare.
Got it.
There are 8 various books of the Maccabees. So not Baruch. I'm sorry. I had Baruch mixed up with the Maccabees.
Okay.
So there's only the one book of Baruch.
I'm a little confused right now.
Remember before when I said there was 8 books of Baruch?
Yeah. No,
there's only one.
But like Maccabees we're jumping ahead hundreds of years though, right?
Yeah, but I don't know why. We're just talking about the Maccabees.
Before we were saying that Baruch wrote 8 books, and now you're saying it's the Maccabees that were written.
Who knows?
We're talking about...
It's all just so confusing and interesting.
Okay.
So there are 8 various books of Maccabees, some written in Hebrew, others in Greek. Okay? The books cover a wide array of genres such as history, philosophy, and praise of reason, and poetry and speeches.
Okay, I have to stop you here because I'm really confused as to what is going on.
Okay.
Like, we were talking about Baruch, and now we've jumped to something completely different, it feels like.
Okay. So,
and I have no idea how we got here.
Okay. So, let me go back up where I first mentioned the Maccabees.
Okay.
So, some scholars propose that the book of Baruch was written during or shortly after the period of the Maccabees.
So, there are books of Baruch.
No.
Okay.
Some scholars propose that the book of Baruch, which is, not canon,
right,
that it was written during or shortly after the period of the Maccabees.
Right, but that says there's a book of Baruch. I'm struggling here. I'm sorry.
Okay. So this probably happened after Baruch died.
Okay.
So Baruch, he's all sad because his buddy Jeremiah just got stoned. And so he takes Jeremiah's body back to Babylon and buries him, and they disappear into history.
Yeah.
Okay. Then later on, the Maccabees happen.
Sure.
Okay. And then they write this book of Baruch.
Okay. So Baruch didn't write any of this shit.
Probably not.
We said differently earlier. So, I'm just trying to clarify.
Not this part.
Oh my gosh. You are really confusing me here.
Okay. He did not write the Maccabee shit. Okay.
I understand that.
But we're talking about the book of Baruch right now.
You just told me there's not a book of Baruch.
There is a book of Baruch.
Okay, but earlier you told me he wrote it.
Because there are some people who believe he wrote it. I'm telling you all the different stories.
My brain's not working currently, apparently. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, listen.
Okay.
So, Baruch is going around writing down Jeremiah's words.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then they get kidnapped into Egypt.
Sure.
And then Jeremiah gets stoned. Right? And then Baruch probably takes Jeremiah's body back to Babylon. Right?
Okay.
Baruch may or may not have written a book. If he did, he wrote a book, and it's called the Book of Baruch.
Okay.
Yay, the end, right?
Got it.
Okay, but he may not have written it.
Okay.
And then he and Jeremiah, they're in Babylon, they disappear into history. And then a few hundred years later, the Maccabee period comes around, and some of them guys write the Book of Baruch.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And the reason that we're talking about the Maccabees is because what the fuck is a Maccabee, and why are they writing a Book of Baruch?
Right.
Okay? So that's where, there's 8 different ones of them, and they were trying to get rid of Hellenism at the same time that, they're excited about Greek stuff, like Greek philosophy and Greek logic and reason and stuff. So it's just, they're a really weird group.
Okay.
Don't really understand the Maccabee people.
Sure.
Okay. So these books are not the Maccabee books.
Mm-hmm.
There's 8 of them. They are not part of the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible,
right,
which came from the Jewish canon. However, they were part of the Septuagint, the Greek translation.
Right.
Okay. Both books are included in the Old Testament, Maccabees 1 and 2.
For the Catholics and for the, yeah,
and for the Orthodox churches.
Right.
Okay. But they're not included in the Old Testament books and most Protestant Bibles because they're apocryphal.
Right.
Okay. Now we're caught up to where, so may I read?
Sure.
Okay. My notes. Okay. There are 8 various books of the Maccabees.
Okay.
Okay. Some were written in Hebrew and others were written in Greek.
All right.
The books cover a wide array of genres, such as, do you remember? Because I already said this part. Okay. History, philosophy in the praise of reason, poetry, and speeches.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
So now we're leaving the Maccabees and we're talking about the book of Baruch.
Okay.
Okay. Whoever wrote it.
Got it.
Okay. It is sometimes referred to as First Baruch to distinguish it from Second Baruch, Third Baruch, and Fourth Baruch.
Okay. You have got me really fucked up here. Because, like, I asked you if there was a book of Baruch, and you're like, yes, there's 8 books of Baruch. And then there was, like, a book of Baruch. And now there's 4 books of Baruch.
Because I got confused. I got the 8 number from the Maccabees.
Okay.
There's 8 Maccabee books. There's 4 Baruch books. Okay.
But not just one. There's 4.
Yeah.
And possibly Baruch wrote all 4, but possibly he didn't.
I'm going to guess he didn't. Okay. That's my guess.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, the earliest known manuscripts of these Baruch books were written in Greek.
Okay.
But although they are not in the Hebrew Bible, the book of Baruch is found in the Septuagint as well as in the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible.
Okay.
Ethiopia just keeps coming up in this.
They really do, yeah.
It's so interesting to me. Okay. In 80 book Protestant Bibles, like the one that we're reading.
In what? In 80?
80 book, like there's 80 books.
Okay.
In the Bible.
Got it. Yeah.
The book of Baruch is a part of the biblical Apocrypha. Apocrypha means no.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
It's a no.
Right.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Okay. Jerome, you know who Jerome is, right?
Yeah, we talked about him.
Saint
recently.
Jerome,
right.
and he's the one who translated. Did he do the Septuagint? No, he did the Latin, the Vulgate. I think he did the Vulgate.
Okay.
I don't remember which one he did, but I think he did the Vulgate. Okay, despite his see, I was right. Okay, despite his misgivings about the deuterocanonical books, he included Baruch into his Vulgate, the Latin version, and in the Vulgate, it is grouped with the books of the prophets alongside Jeremiah and Lamentations. So it's just like right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Just dropped it in.
Got it. Yeah.
In the Vulgate, the King James Bible Apocrypha, and many other versions, the letter of Jeremiah. What? What's a letter of Jeremiah?
I don't know.
Is appended to the book of Baruch as a 6th chapter.
Okay.
In the Septuagint and Orthodox Bibles, chapter 6 is usually counted as a separate book called the letter or epistle of Jeremiah.
Got it.
What the fuck? Okay, let's read about that a little bit.
All right.
Okay. What is a letter of Jeremiah?
What is it?
It is also known as the epistle of Jeremiah, which, that makes sense because that is the same word.
Right.
It is a deuterocanonical book of the Old Testament, and this letter is attributed to Jeremiah, and it's addressed to the Jews who were about to be carried away as captives to Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like right during that thing that was happening.
Yeah.
Okay. It is included in Roman Catholic Bibles as the final chapter of the book of Baruch.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's considered Baruch 6.
Got it.
Chapter 6.
Got
it. It is also included in Orthodox Bibles, but as a separate book. So it's not listed as Baruch chapter 6. It's listed as its own separate book, the letter of Jeremiah. Right, yeah. So the biblical book of Jeremiah does contain the words of a letter sent by, the book of Jeremiah is what we're reading right now.
Yeah.
It does contain the words of a letter sent by Jeremiah from Jerusalem to the captives in Babylon. That was in Jeremiah chapter 29.
And they kind of alluded to some communication like that in Jeremiah. So
exactly.
Okay.
The letter of Jeremiah portrays itself as a similar piece of correspondence.
Got it.
So this is
just supplemental, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Most contemporary scholars agree that the author was not Jeremiah, though.
Oh.
Because, of course.
Right.
The author may have been a Hellenistic Jew who lived in Alexandria, but it is difficult to say with certainty. And I love a note that can say,
Right.
The earliest manuscripts containing the Epistle of Jeremiah are all in Greek.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
In recent years, though, the tide of opinion has shifted, and now the consensus is that the letter, in quotes, was likely originally composed, even though the earliest one that we have is in Greek, it was probably originally composed in Hebrew or Aramaic.
Is that apologists saying that, or is that like actual like scholars saying that?
That's scholars saying that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Scholars they're dating it based on words that appear. Like, for instance, there was one place where Jeremiah referred to, in the letter, he referred to 70 years instead of 7 generations.
Okay.
And he would have said 70 years.
Okay.
Because I forget how they came to that conclusion, but there was all this research done into his writing. And apparently he tried to shy away from saying 7 generations because that thought like struck his heart or whatever. Like he fucking hated it.
Got it.
So the fact that just little things like that, like just phrasing and translations of words that he used, they're like, I don't know about this. I don't think this was originally in Greek.
Right.
I think what we have is a copy.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yep.
A translated copy.
Right.
Okay. So the letter itself is actually a rant against idols and idolatry,
Of
which
course it
that
is.
tracks.
Right. Yeah.
Right. The work was written with a very serious effort to instruct the Jews not to worship the gods of the Babylonians, but to worship only the Lord.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, that tracks.
Yeah,
so.
totally. Like he could have written it, even if he didn't.
Yeah.
He might as well have.
Right.
Right. Like I would totally believe you if you said he wrote it.
Right.
So after his rant, he goes on this diatribe. After that, he does this satire where he's like talking about the idols. And he's like, blah, they're so stupid or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he like brings it back. Okay.
Okay.
And so the author warned the Hebrew exiles that during their exile, they would see the worship paid to idols. And the author begged the people not to participate because the idols were created by men without the powers of speech, hearing, or self-preservation. Okay.
Okay.
So that was a lot of fucking information. Didn't answer all of our questions, but it answered a lot of them.
Created some new ones for me.
Yes. Yes. I'm sorry. I feel like I contributed to you not following, but I also am going to go out on a limb and say, but you were not following. Some of it was me, but some of it was you.
Okay. All right.
So the questions that we originally had were what happened to Jeremiah and Baruch, which we told some stories. Okay?
Right.
Are there other legends, stories, or traditions about them? Yes. Yes, there are.
Right.
And we discussed them. Did Baruch go on with the remnant in Egypt? Yes. But then no.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
Or did he go back to Babylon? No. And then yes.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And how did Baruch put together Jeremiah's story? Nobody knows.
Right.
Any more than we know any of the other ones.
Yeah.
And at what point did it become official OT material? That is probably going to be like one of those Council of Nicaea things where, you know, those guys at their big conference table, and that'll be a special for another day.
Sure.
Because I don't know a lot about that.
Right. Okay. All right. So that was our Q&A for today?
That was our A and Q.
Answer and question.
Yeah.
All right. So that'll do us for today, I guess. And then let's see, we're gonna be back tomorrow with our
Sacrilegious Book Club.
Right. And then I will get the weekly wrap up out, and then we'll be back on Monday with
Jeremiah chapter 46. And I just want to add real quick.
Yeah.
You guys, you should really come to the book club tomorrow and listen, because it actually covers a lot of the time period that we're in and relates.
Okay.
Like, I was pretty excited about it. So
Got it.
I think you'll like it.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, we'll see you guys then.
Bye. Husband.
Wife.
Do you know what we're doing today, right now?
Well, it is Sunday, which means that we're probably doing...
Sacrilegious Book Club.
That's the one. Jesus.
Oh my gosh, that was so enthusiastic.
That was like some pin-up sacrilegious book clubbing.
It was. It's
hell?
been a minute.
Yeah. So what are we book clubbing today?
So we're still in this big old book called Treasury of Jewish Folklore, Stories, Traditions, Legends, Humor, Wisdom, and Folk Songs of the Jewish People, edited by Nathan Osubel.
Yeah.
And, we're in, I forget what part it is, but it's over halfway through the book.
It sure is.
We're doing some folk tales.
Folk tales.
On page 565.
And you gave a lead in to the last episode that we did that this might be somewhat relevant to the time period that we're in talking about, maybe?
Relevant to the thing that we just read on yesterday.
Okay.
With regard to the Maccabees.
Okay.
That you found so confusing.
Yeah, I did. Just for the record, I re-listened to our episode today and I still was confused.
Oh my God. Okay.
I'm just saying.
Well, okay. Well, then maybe you'll hate this. Who knows?
I would not. We'll see.
We'll see.
All right. So, you ready to do this?
Yes, I am.
All right, let's do it.
Okie dokie. All right. So I did a quick peek and remember when I said, oh shit, I don't remember what part we're in.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we are in part 4, Tales and Legends. And then of that, we are in chapter 4, Folk Tales.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And we're just covering the first half of this chapter because it's about Alexander the Great.
Okay.
Okay. Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So anyway, like I said, page 565, and I'm just going to start with the introduction here and then go into some notes that I have.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
So the narrative art of Jewish folklore has the liveliness and color of all Eastern storytelling, Jewish, Hindu, and Arabic tales alike. They use all the technical devices of suspense and the surprise ending with much skill. And yet there is a subtle difference that marks off Jewish tales and legends from the other. Okay? They are more cerebral, turned inward, as it were, and tirelessly pointing a moral for the guidance of men. Okay? So their stories are more moral driven.
They say that.
They say that.
I mean, I don't know how much stock to put into that.
Based on what we've read, that's not always the case.
Well, I'm just saying, like, obviously this is leaning towards the Jewish take on this. So,
right.
I mean, to say that the other religions don't have a moral take is maybe being a little disingenuous, possibly.
Well, I'm not saying know the folklore.
We don't know the other side, so I'm just saying we don't know.
I don't know their folklore.
Right, exactly. So, and that's what I'm saying. We can't speak.
It. That's true.
We're giving an opinion based on this book.
That is true. That is true.
That's
Good
all
call.
I wanted to say.
This is the character of the didactic tales about Alexander Mukdun, or Alexander the Macedonian.
Okay.
Who is Alexander the
Great.
Fucking Great.
Got it.
Okay?
Yeah.
So here's where I'm going to deviate from the intro and go into my notes, which include some information from the intro, but also a little bit more about Alexander the Great and the time period to kind of tie it in better with what we were reading yesterday.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it is surprising that the G, that's how I...
What?
Alexander the Great.
Oh.
That's how I abbreviated him in my notes. The G.
Yeah.
It's surprising that Alexander the Great looms so large and favorably in Jewish folklore because he had very little contact with the Jewish people, except for that one time that he marched through Palestine in 332 BCE. Okay. So yeah, he did that.
Got it. Was he just passing through?
He was just passing through on his way to conquer the world,
Got it.
Yeah. Took it down, whatever.
Yeah, right.
Until the age of 16, Alexander was tutored by Aristotle.
Really?
Right?
Interesting.
So crazy, like all the different people and things that like
tie in
together and that go together.
Right.
Like I have such a hard time when I'm studying, like in school, you only study one culture at a time.
Yeah.
And then you never come back to it. when you study a different culture the next semester, right? And the teacher and the history books, like they never put those things side by side and tell you these things were happening in different parts of the world at the same time.
Sure.
And that is why I've always hated history, because I could never understand.
They don't tie it together.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm a person that I need all those loose ends tied together.
No, one of my favorite podcasts that is sadly no longer, I don't think they make new episodes anymore as much, or at least like I think they release things from other people or something like that, but it's not the exact thing that I liked. But NPR had a podcast called Throughline. I loved that podcast because they would talk about a current issue through the lens of all of history, essentially. Like they would tell you about that incident, that thing, starting from where it all originated from through current day.
I really liked that one too.
Yeah. It was such a great podcast.
It was really good. I liked it too. Yeah. So this upbringing, being tutored by Aristotle and his education contributed to his popularity because Hellenism and other Greek culture things had been infiltrating steadily into Jewish life since the pre-Maccabean era, which, I mean, that makes sense because that's what we were talking about yesterday. The confusion with the Greek culture versus the Jewish culture.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And they're getting rid of the Greek culture, but also, oh no, we're getting rid of the Greek culture.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't decide what they wanted.
Sure.
And so that was happening in Judea and Syria, but particularly into Egypt, where a great Jewish population of more than 1 million.
Wow.
Yeah. Had developed a significant Greco-Jewish culture by the 2nd century BCE.
Especially interesting considering God was going to kill them all.
Right?
Remember?
Yeah.
They didn't run away back to Judah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was going to wipe them all out. And instead, they flourished in Egypt.
Right. Crazy how that worked.
Yeah. Thus, Greek legends about Alexander the Great found an eager audience among Hellenized Jews.
Okay.
Yeah. I love...
Well, and there was that Greek pharaoh, too, remember? So, like, I wonder if that helped, solidify some of those ideas, too. So.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah. So, in 335 BCE, shortly after his assumption of kingship over Macedon, Alexander the Great campaigned... I can't say just Alexander.
Right.
You have to
Alexander
say
the Great.
The Great is his last name.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. He campaigned in the Balkans and he marched all over the damn place.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gaining control of some countries and then destroying others.
Okay.
So if he couldn't make them bend to his will, he just basically bombed them, whatever.
Right.
So in 334 BCE, he invaded the Persian Empire.
Ooh.
Yeah. And he began a series of campaigns that lasted for 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Following his conquest in Asia Minor.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Alexander the Great broke the power of Persia in a series of decisive battles.
Okay.
So, I mean, he was kicking some ass.
He's pretty great.
He was pretty great.
I mean, for,
that's what I hear.
Military person.
Yeah. Yeah. So after the fall of Persia, the Macedonian Empire held a vast swath of territory between the Adriatic Sea and the Indus River. Okay.
It is funny to me, though, that we know him as Alexander the Great, and he apparently was very well thought of by Israelites, which kind of translates into Western culture.
Yes.
So, that idea that he was great from them is maybe why we think of him as. But, if you're Persian, if you were from that part of the world or Asia Minor,
he wasn't
maybe
so great.
Maybe he wasn't so great.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
He wanted to reach the, quote, ends of the world and the great outer sea. Okay.
Okay.
So he invaded India in 326 BCE.
Damn, he made his way around the world.
Oh, he did. He did. He achieved there a very important victory.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, he was sticking his dick everywhere.
Yeah. Right.
Due to the demand of his homesick troops, he eventually turned back and later on died in 323 BCE.
Okay.
In Babylon, the city of Mesopotamia that he had planned to establish as his empire's capital.
Okay.
Which I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Right? We're literally in the place that we've been reading about.
Yeah.
Okay. Alexander's death left a series of military and mercantile campaigns unfinished. Like, he had all these great plans that
Sure.
just kind of fell through when he died.
Right.
These would have begun with a Greek invasion of Arabia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
In the years following his death, a series of civil wars broke out across the Macedonian Empire, eventually leading to its disintegration.
Huh.
So he was the only thing holding it together.
Right.
And then when he died and all his plans
Everything
crumbled.
fell apart.
Yeah. So he was like a great leader, but didn't apparently have great leadership.
Right. To bring up somebody to follow him up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So his personality appealed to the Jewish community for multiple reasons, which I have listed here.
Okay.
Okay. 1, he treated his conquered people more humanely and with more tolerance than other world conquerors.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Right.
Like, as long as they bent and let him be
right.
in charge.
Yeah.
Then he was like, all right, cool. Go about your business. Do your thing.
Sure.
Number 2, he allowed Jewish life to continue undisturbed as long as they just let him have world domination. Like, literally.
I mean,
Fair enough.
Right.
Right?
Look, how many times have the Israelites been in war, have been conquered, have conquered others, but like fighting all the time, right?
Right.
If somebody comes along, they're like, hey, you're good. I just want to claim this land.
Yeah, I just need to write your name here for tax purposes.
And then they're like, but we can do everything we were doing.
We're still Jewish, right?
Right. And he's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so, I mean, they're probably like, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Man, go. I mean, we don't want to fight all this. So,
Yeah.
go
You can
on.
say you own us. We don't give a shit.
We're cool with it.
We're always owned by somebody.
Right.
Okay, so number 3, his military genius was astonishing to
Okay.
all. Like, everywhere he went, even though they got conquered, they'd be like, but yeah, he is a pretty brilliant leader. I mean,
Sure.
look what he did to us.
Yeah.
I mean, we still talk about that today. That's like, I read in one of my notes that military leaders still to this day study his brilliant campaigns.
Right.
Because he was just such a smart
Genius. Military.
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, I'm fumbling for words because how many different ways can you say brilliant and smart and genius,
Right.
But that's what he was.
Sure.
Okay. Number 4, he was a philosopher of the highest pedigree, as the Jews had great reverence for Aristotle. So they respected that about him.
Okay.
They're like, cool. We like that philosophy shit.
Right.
Which is funny because they were also like, but philosophy and Greek stuff, we don't like that. But,
to an extent,
but we do, though.
But there might have been different groups too, because I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
It's
that's
so
hard to
weird
say.
because they were like, some of them were for it and some of them were against it. And it depended on the political reason why and which group of them and which country they were in at the moment.
Sure. But like, let's take the United States, right? Like if somebody were to write a history about this time period later on and say, well, the U.S. had taken a large swing to the Christian nationalist side of things. And that's how the world started. Like, that's how they started acting, because the government was controlled by that, and the Supreme Court, and everybody started, all blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we're a monolith.
That's
In fact, most of us don't agree with that.
Right.
But our government acts as though that's not the case.
Right. Exactly.
So,
all right. Number 5, his intellect was admired almost as greatly, perhaps, as Solomon's.
wow.
Yeah. So they didn't make that comparison.
Solomon might have been the wisest, but this dude was like the second wisest.
Yeah. Like, they didn't make that comparison themselves,
Sure.
but the way that they write about him and admire him,
Yeah.
it's like they all but say it.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Talmud authors found in Alexander the perfect specimen for their moralizing folk tales.
Okay.
Because even though he was like a brilliant military campaign person and he was really smart and stuff, he wasn't Solomon. He wasn't Jewish. So they could also like paint him as goofy
Sure.
and be like, oh, that Alexander the Great.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So one satirical question raised in many of the Jewish Alexander stories is this: how was it possible for a man claiming to be a philosopher to be so lacking in wisdom and virtue as to pursue such destructive and senseless ends as wars of conquest?
I mean, you could say the same thing about the Israelites at certain points during their, earlier years.
Yeah.
So I don't. That
How indeed?
maybe look inward a little bit.
Right.
So.
Right. So many Alexander stories in the Agada and other Jewish literature, which there are Alexander the Great stories in the Agada and in Jewish literature.
Sure.
That just astounds me.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that just came unexpected to me.
Right.
They come straight from Greek tales and legends.
Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm. The three that are included in this section that we're going to read today.
Yeah.
Those three are Jewish in origin.
Okay.
Okay. So the other ones were influenced by other stories. These ones are strictly Jewish and Jewish created.
Okay. Yeah.
The second one is derived from the Talmud. The second story that we're going to read came from the Talmud. And the third one first appeared in the Agada. Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to get into these stories, and they're all pretty short. Okay. And none of them are too brilliant. I just thought that makes for a natural breaking point in the chapter to talk about Alexander the Great and then read those three stories, and then we'll do the other ones next book club. Okay. Okay, that are not Alexander related.
Sure.
Okay, so we start with The Great Are Also Little on page 566. Okay. This one, when I read it, sounded kind of familiar, so I've either heard this specific story or one inspired by it.
Got it.
Okay. This is page 566, The Great Are Also Little. No matter how much he achieved in the world, Alexander still remained dissatisfied. I would like to experience something most unusual that no human being before me has ever experienced, he cried. So he ordered his hunters to capture a number of eagles. Nobody ever captured eagles like that before. Just kidding. He chose the largest among them and sat himself astride it. You couldn't be very big if you could sit even on a large eagle, is my opinion. Right? You can't be a very large person.
I think people were a little bit smaller back then.
They were shorter.
So,
like, Lincoln is supposed to be, like, super tall, but then if you, like, actually look at his measurements, I think he was only, like, 5'10".
Right, yeah.
Some shit like that.
Well, have you ever walked into, like, old houses from, like, the 17 or 1800s?
Yeah, like, the doorways are so much lower.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Right?
Yeah, it's almost like evolution or something.
You know, it's almost like that.
Right? Yeah. Interesting. Right. Yeah, so maybe they could fit on eagles back then.
Maybe.
Okay, so he sat on this fucking eagle. He chose the largest among them and sat himself astride on it. Then he speared a piece of flesh onto his lance and raised it high. As soon as the eagle smelled the flesh, it rose up in the air, straining to reach it. Purposely, Alexander held the flesh out of reach of the eagle, who rose ever higher and higher into the air.
Alexander the Great rode a fucking eagle.
He rode a fucking eagle into the sky, yeah.
Call bullshit, but okay.
I mean, it's not a bad way to ride an eagle. If you're going to ride an eagle, that's the way to do it.
If it was at all possible, yeah. I mean,
that's how I'd ride a dragon.
Sure. Yeah, you know? Just dangle some meat in front of it.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Soon the towns and cities began to look like pinpoints to the king. Alexander was filled with vainglory. Who can compare to me now, he gloated. I am higher than all men. In my eyes now, they look like insects. And I'm like, you're brilliant, and nobody else would ever do that.
Right.
Right? Like, now that they've seen you do it, though, you're not great. You were just the first one that did that. And maybe not the first one, but just the first one that we know about.
I mean, let's just be clear. He didn't do this.
Oh, right. No, okay. Totally.
And no one, you can't ride a fucking eagle.
No, you can't.
Okay. All right.
Their bones would not support you.
No.
But suddenly, fear gripped him. He thought, if I am so high up, how can people see me? Maybe I also look like a fly to them.
You do.
Perhaps they don't see me at all. And if I am out of sight, how can they do me honor? Soon they may even forget me. Like, when it said that suddenly fear gripped him, I thought it was like, if I fall from this height, I will surely die.
But no, it's because he's going to be forgotten.
What if they don't like me anymore?
Well, if they're going to forget you during the course of a flight on an eagle,
right?
You know, you got some bigger issues, man.
Yeah, I'm just like, I think that your priorities are a bit confused, my guy. And all his pride burst, and his uniqueness seemed as nothing to him now. And still the eagle kept soaring farther and farther from the earth. Once more, Alexander looked down, and the earth now seemed to him like a little ball.
Oh, whatever.
Okay,
Jesus
so
Christ.
he flew that eagle up into space, is what they're trying to tell me.
Past the moon, even.
Yeah. The king grew frightened, and he lowered his lance with the flesh on its point. Straining to reach it, the eagle began to descend over lower and lower. Soon objects became distinct, even larger and larger, towns, trees, and people. And the nearer he came, people grew bigger and bigger to his eyes. And Alexander rejoiced and derived the right moral from it. Okay?
Okay.
You ready for this?
I'm ready.
When he reached the ground again, he ordered a sculptor to fashion a portrait of him holding a small sphere in his hand. Let people know, spoke the king, that even the mighty Alexander can look as insignificant as this tiny sphere.
Well, that is
the good moral, but I don't think if they see you holding that, what that looks like is you saying, I was bigger than the world for a minute.
Right.
The world was as nothing but a little ball while I was high in the sky.
Yeah.
Like, I somehow think that maybe...
Or like, I hold the world in the palm of my hand.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm like... I hear your words, but your picture that you're asking to be painted doesn't match.
Right.
I maybe think you didn't get the right moral.
Right. Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Sure.
Okay. So the next story begins on the next page, 567, and it's called The Lord Helpeth Man and Beast.
Okay.
And I liked this one.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
During his march to conquer the world, Alexander the Macedonian came to a people in Africa who dwelt in a remote and secluded corner in peaceful huts and knew neither war nor conqueror. They led him to the hut of their chief, who received him hospitably and placed before him golden dates, golden figs, and bread of gold.
Okay.
Do you eat gold in this country? Asked Alexander. I take it for granted, replied the chief, that thou wert able to find eatable food in thine own country. For what reason, then, art thou come among us? Your gold has not tempted me hither, said Alexander, but I would become acquainted with your manners and customs. So be it, rejoined the other. Sojourn among us long as it pleaseth thee.
Okay.
At the close of this conversation, two citizens entered as to their court of justice. The plaintiff said, I bought of this man a piece of land, and as I was making a deep drain through it, I found a treasure. This is not mine, for I only bargained for the land and not for any treasure that might be concealed beneath it. And yet the former owner of the land will not receive it back.
The hell?
The defendant answered, I hope I have a conscience as well as my fellow citizen. I sold him the land with all its contingent as well as existing advantages, and consequently the treasure inclusively.
Wow, this is a very honest people
right?
that he came across here.
Yeah, they're very nice to each other. Like,
they're going to court to fight over who
gets the gold, not me. Right?
Yeah.
It reminds me, there was this episode of The Simpsons where Lisa and Bart were arguing over who loves Homer more. And at first you're like, oh, that's cute. They're like, you're thinking that they're going to be like, I do. But then, no, they're actually saying, you do. I'll never forget that. That's what this reminded me of.
Yeah.
Okay. The chief, who was at the same time their supreme judge, recapitulated their words in order that the parties might see whether or not he understood them aright. Mm-hmm. Then, after some reflection, he said, Thou hast a son, friend, I believe. Yes. And thou, addressing the other, a daughter? Yes. Well then, let thy son marry thy daughter and bestow the treasure on the young couple for a marriage portion. Which I didn't like the arranged marriage bit.
Right.
But
given customs back then and the time and what have you.
And they were like, well, yeah, that's great. Alexander seemed surprised and perplexed. You think my sentence unjust? The chief asked him. Oh, no, replied Alexander, but it astonishes me. And how then, rejoined the chief, would the case have been decided in your country?
Right.
Ooh, to confess the truth, said Alexander, we should have taken both parties into custody and have seized the treasure for the king's use.
What?
That tracks.
That's a bit harsh.
Like, why you bringing this foolish thing?
I guess.
Like, either y'all split the gold. Well, they would have been fighting to keep the gold, is the thing.
Yeah.
And so if they went to court over it, they would be like, solve this problem.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
For the king's use, exclaimed the chief, does the sun shine on your country? Oh, yes. Does it rain there? Assuredly. Wonderful. But are there tame animals in the country that live on the grass and green herbs? Oh, very many and of many kinds.
Mm-hmm.
Aye, then that must be the cause, said the chief. For the sake of those innocent animals, the all-gracious being continues to let the sun shine and the rain drop on your own country, since its inhabitants are unworthy of such blessings. I liked that one. I was like, oh, damn.
Right. Yeah.
Basically, he's like, your people suck.
Yeah.
Like, it's
I have
amazing.
a feeling that some, Alexander the Great, being a conqueror and all, wouldn't have much appreciated that, disparaging remark toward him.
I don't know, because the way he's presented in this story in particular, like, he doesn't say he disapproves.
Right.
He was specifically asked, do you disapprove?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, actually, it's fine.
Sure.
Like, and
they do refer to him as a philosopher, so maybe he was willing to take in new ideas.
Yeah, I think that he was just like, wow, that's actually really cool. We would never do something like that.
Right.
Like, I think he kind of admired it.
Sure.
Like, that would never fly in my country. We'll never be like that. And I am going to, conquer you.
Right.
But still, cool. Good story, bro.
Right.
Okay, last one. Ready? This one is on page 568, and it's called The Acquisitive Eye. And I did kind of like this one as well.
Okay.
This one's more philosophy driven.
Yeah.
After he had conquered the entire world, Alexander started back on his journey home to Macedonia. On the way, he came to a stream. He dismounted, and taking out some salted fish he carried in his knapsack, he began to rinse them in the water before eating. At this, a remarkable thing happened. Upon touching the water, the fish became alive.
I mean, that's not entirely surprising.
Right.
Like,
that can happen.
That can happen, yeah.
But in this story, it is magic.
Sure.
Okay. Filled with amazement, Alexander threw himself into the stream and bathed in it. Now I understand, he cried overjoyed, that the water in this stream flows from paradise.
Wow.
I will wash my face quickly in it, and then I'll follow the stream, for it's sure to lead me to paradise. Barely had he finished washing his face when his eyes began to shine like stars. His face became radiant. His energies renewed. I need to swim in these waters.
Where is this place?
I don't know, but I'm hoping it would help me lose some weight.
Right.
Never before had he felt so happy. Quickly, he went up to the gates of paradise, but he found them closed. Open the gates, he cried out. Alexander wants to enter.
Right.
Like, could you imagine, like, marching up to a gate and saying, your name wants to enter?
I mean, he was a conqueror, so maybe he just felt entitled to go into whatever.
Trump would say it, like, referring to himself in the third person all the time.
Sure.
Open the gate, husband. Wife wants in.
Right.
Like, what?
Right.
That's not how we talk.
Yeah.
Instantly, the answer came. These are the gates of the eternal. Only the pious may enter here. Seeing that the gates would not open for him, he implored, give me some kind of token, O heavenly gates, so that I can prove that I've been here. At this, the gates of paradise relented and opened for an instant. A human eye then rolled towards him. Amazed, Alexander picked it up and placed it in his knapsack. Then he made his way home to Macedonia. No sooner had he reached home when he called all his wise men together. He told them everything that had happened to him. What signifies the strange gift I received? He asked.
Yeah.
O king, replied the wise men, place the eye in the scales and weigh it. What for? Replied Alexander. I can tell you beforehand that it weighs but little. Like, I just carried it all the way home. It's a fucking eye.
Sure.
Just do it just the same, the wise men urged. In the other half of the scales, place a gold piece. Then we will find out which is heavier. The wise men know a thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. You can tell they know what's happening.
Sure.
Okay. Then we will find out which is heavier. Alexander did as they asked. To his surprise, he found that the eye was heavier than the gold piece. He threw into the scales another gold coin. Still, the eye was heavier.
Oh, man.
He then threw in a whole handful of coins and ordered that all his gold and silver and jewels be thrown in. Still, the eye outweighed the treasure.
Okay.
Even were you to take all your chariots and horses and palaces and place them in the scales, the eye will still be heavier, said the wise men.
That's one crazy eye.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Again, this is a philosophy story.
Sure. No,
okay?
I know.
Okay. How do you explain this? Asked the king. How is such a thing possible? Learn a lesson from this, O king, said the wise men. Know that the human eye is never satisfied with what it sees. No matter how much treasure you will show it, it will want more and still more. Your explanation doesn't satisfy me. Give me proof, insisted Alexander, which I think is fair. Like,
Sure.
That sounds weird. Like, arbitrary. Like,
Right.
I see that all the jewels are heavier than the eye. That is some weird mojo going on.
Right.
But just what an odd lesson that you're applying to it.
I agree.
Very well, agreed the wise men. Have all your gold and treasure removed from the scales. Then place a pinch of dust in their place and observe what happens. Barely had Alexander placed a little dust in the scales when they tipped to the other end.
Oh, man.
For the dust proved heavier than the eye. Now I understand the meaning of your words and of what was in your minds, cried Alexander. So long as a man is alive, his eye is never sated. But no sooner does he die when he is as dust. Then his eye loses its impulse and becomes powerless. It can no longer desire. The end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I thought that was an interesting lesson.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I think what I like from it, from the whole set there, is that Alexander the Great seems to be he seems like a reasonable person.
Yeah.
Ish.
Right.
Like, he conquered lots of people, so I'm guessing he wasn't all that reasonable.
Yeah, like,
but
this, you have to qualify your statement. Like, it comes with a caveat that, given that he was a fucking mass murderer.
I mean, to be fair, that's not all that uncommon in ancient times. That especially we've been reading about it all through the Bible. So it's almost become a little bit numbing how much we read about like just mass murder.
Like, you just almost forget that. Okay, wait, no, he was reasonable given that he killed entire populations of people.
Right.
Like,
he was reasonable to philosophies. He was reasonable to intellect.
And to other cultures' ways of doing things that allowed for equity and equality.
Right.
Even if he didn't necessarily practice them themselves, he seemed to respect and admire it.
At least according to these portrayals.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't want to give him any more credit than he's due because I don't really know that much about him other than he's great, according to, history.
He is great. That's what we hear all the time about how great he is.
It is.
It's part of his fucking name.
Yeah, it sure is.
I had no idea he was actually Alexander or anybody else other than the great, much less Macedonia.
Right.
That he wanted to make Babylon his fucking
base
capital city.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. So you could see why yesterday I was like, y'all gonna want to stay tuned because that history about him it fit the time period kind of.
Got it. All right. Well, is that our book club for today?
That is our book club for today. And next time we will continue that chapter. It'll have more stories, folk tales, but it won't involve Alexander.
Okay. So that'll do us for today for the Sacrilegious Book Club.
Sacrilegious Book Club.
And I will be getting out the weekly wrap-up out here shortly.
Wrap it up out.
Yeah,
out
I said that. Said too many words there. And then we will be back tomorrow with...
Jeremiah chapter 46.
All right. We'll see you then.
Okie dokie. Bye.
Hey, wife, I guess that's the end?
But husband, that's just sad.
It doesn't have to be. We are on lots of social media platforms like Twitter. Our handle there is sacrilegious_D.
For D's nuts.
Oh my God. Stop doing that. Anyway, we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. There's a link to all of our social media sites at our website.
Ooh, we have a website?
Yeah, it's sacrilegiousdiscourse.com, where you can also find a link to our merch shop.
We have a merch shop?
Yep, we have podcast-themed clothing, mugs, notebooks, and more, as well as an atheist and science-themed products.
Wow, our fans should really go check that out right now.
Definitely. They can get in touch with us by sending an email to sacrilegiousdiscourse@gmail.com. But before they do that, we could really use some help.
Oh yeah? With what?
Well, it's not free running the podcast, and we need some financial support in order to get better equipment, which will free up time so we can concentrate on our podcast and our fans.
Okay, so what should they do?
Head over to patreon.com/sacrilegious discourse and sign up as a contributor on our podcast. Supporters there receive additional bi-weekly episodes that we record just for our Patreon members for as little as $2 a month.
Also, we'd really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using.
And Apple Podcast reviews help us out tremendously.
Like and subscribe. Leave an Apple review. Join us on Twitter. Support us on Patreon. That's a lot of instructions. Don't forget to say thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.